From the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen, authentic, original player art prints are being drawn up for Hawkeye fans everywhere. From Under the Kitchen's Murray Legacy print, which features former Hawkeye Kenyon Murray, current Hawkeye Chris Murray, and current Sacramento King Keegan Murray, to football players Lucas Van Ness, Torrey Taylor, and Cooper DeJean, to wrestlers Tony Cassiope, Alex Marinelli, and Real Woods. Oh, and only one of the greatest athletes to ever compete at Iowa, Spencer Lee. There are so many options available, and they make great gifts. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or at Under the Kitchen's new website. It's underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. We are going to be sprucing up that ad because Randy has been hard at work producing more authentic, awesome Hawkeye artwork here in the midst of an Iowa football season that has started 3-0. The Iowa Hawkeyes will take on the Penn State Nittany Lions this coming Wednesday night. Today's Wednesday night. Saturday night. Wouldn't that be something? Big Ten football on a Wednesday night. Saturday night at 6:40 p.m. Central Time on CBS. The first Iowa football game on CBS since the 1990s, back during the Don Patterson era. I believe it was 1997 was the stat that I saw today. So I'm here with you on a Wednesday night. This is the first official Hawkeye hangout of the season. We, of course, do this show, this live college style show throughout the year, but wanted to kind of wait. We, of course, have done post-game shows for each of the first 3 games, and we'll continue to do that with Coach John Patterson throughout the remainder of the season. But in addition, now that we're to Big Ten play, these Hawkeye Hangout live call-in shows during game week will become more of a regular thing. And we're going to be hearing from our callers, our Hawkeye fans out there. And you'll get my thoughts on the matchup. I've talked a little bit about this matchup. I talked with Don Patterson after the Western Michigan game Saturday. I've talked with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, over on his network of channels. We talked with Elliot Clough of the Iowa Rivals site. Talked with him this afternoon over on Mark's network. So plenty of stuff to consume. And we're going to spend the next hour to 2 hours talking about it right here. Nothing is off the table. Although this evening, I'll say this, I kind of feel like taking this evening and making it one of those relaxing evenings where we can kind of just sit back and chat. I don't need this to be some formal arrangement where everybody feels pressured. Not that we're going to have people in wife beaters on the show. Please dress appropriately if you're on camera this evening. We want to stay we want to stay professional as we can, but I also want to be as informal as possible within reason. So if you're interested in calling in, please do so. The number to call in by phone is 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. You can also join the show by clicking the link in the description below. I'll also throw it up in the live chat. We've just got just short of 80 people on right now, and we've got a few people already wanting to chat. I was just joking about the wife beaters thing. Let's see if we can get our first caller on here. We got people lighting up the phone lines already. We're going to put our first caller on hold. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, this is Kyle from Cedar Rapids.
Kyle from Cedar Rapids. How you doing, sir?
Good, you?
Doing good, man. Beautiful Wednesday night.
Agree. Finally Big Ten play. It'll be tough, but I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Big Ten play, and what better way to start but trip out to the East Coast for a rainy showdown or potentially rainy showdown with the Lions.
Yeah, it's going to kind of remind me, 2009, we had our first Big Ten game was at Penn State, rainy, whiteout. Hopefully this one goes the way it did a couple of years ago.
Was that the first Big Ten game in 2009?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And it was the first Big Ten game, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017 as well. Both teams were 3-0 in that game.
Yeah.
That game, of course, was in Kinnick.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think your prediction for the game this Saturday?
My prediction for the game?
Yeah, like, what do you think will happen?
Well, I haven't come out with my score prediction yet, Kyle. I'll be releasing that probably Friday morning, but I do think it will be close. I don't think either team will score more than maybe 20 or 25 at the very most. I'll be surprised if Iowa's defense gives up more than that to this Penn State um, offense. The running backs, the young backs for Penn State have been um, very much hyped up. They were young and really played above their age, I guess, if that, or play older than they were last year, and they've not quite lived up to the hype from a numbers perspective yet through 3 games. I have no doubt that they'll figure it out. Drew Aller or Alar, however you pronounce his last name, he's obviously really good, um, really crisp arm. I don't know that he's real mobile. I had a conversation with Coach John Patterson last night as he was actually watching the Illinois Penn State game back, and one observation he had was that, hey, it doesn't look like Drew's real comfortable out of the pocket. And now he's probably more comfortable than a guy like Spencer Petras. But I think if Iowa can get in the backfield, cause him some problems. He doesn't have a ton of experience in these big time games. He's played in a couple, but he's young, and I certainly trust Cade McNamara. I hope he's healthier than he looked on Saturday. Knock on wood. I trust him and an experienced group of Hawkeyes to go in there and put up a fight. It may be enough to get it done. It may not be, but I expect the game to be competitive.
Yes, yeah, I expect to be competitive, but I really believe that the only way for the offense to actually really play well is just to empty the playbook. Like, really, like, don't use your usual plays you usually run in the game. Just empty it out, like, catch them by surprise and shock the world.
Well,
And I need the young guys. Say that again.
no, I was to say that would be nice to see something unique in the playbook. It'd be nice to see Iowa utilize a waste down, or at least try to go play action and throw the ball down the field on a 2nd and 1 or a 2nd and 2. Because believe me, they had 5 against Western Michigan. They had 5 quote unquote waste downs against Western Michigan. They didn't attempt to take advantage of any. Now the argument could be made maybe they're trying to build up tendency, and that, in other words, Kyle, Penn State's going to see 5 runs on tape, and so perhaps catch them unsuspecting. Maybe. I have not seen that proven by Brian Ferentz and this offensive coaching staff. However, I will say this. Let's give Brian credit where credit is due. They have tried to get the ball downfield more this season so far, and that is a positive. They haven't connected on a bunch of balls. They did get they drew a pass interference call last week on a deep shot to Deontay Vines. McNamara got in trouble on a couple of those deep shots. But I like the fact that they're attacking downfield because that's what they need to do. This offense has been stuck in the mud far too long. You're right. I mean, we say open the playbook. I don't know how open the playbook needs to be or how deep the playbook in reality is. But yeah, things like waste downs and just trying to be a little bit more unpredictable on first down. I think, I don't think they're going to, we can talk about this maybe a different day with Coach Patterson. I've meant to bring it up, but Iowa continues to go empty, especially on early downs, on obvious run/pass downs, I should say. And with an immobile quarterback or a guy who's hampered due to injury, I don't know what the point of spreading things out to a point where you have nobody in the backfield, no threat to run. I don't quite get that, but it's worked here and there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what kind of plays Brian Ferentz. They needed to have plays ready for this game, like specific for Penn State. I know Spencer Petras made a comment like a year ago during the season that, we're not trying to draw up new plays during the season. Well, you probably should be. That's sort of part of operating an offense, is continuing to figure out different plays that may work against certain opponents and maybe plays you've never ran before in a game. And that's what makes a great offense, being unpredictable and being able to look at tape, study tape, and figure out what could work in certain situations and having that ready if the time presents itself. So, yeah, you're right about that, Kyle. Hopefully Iowa can be opportunistic and maybe take advantage of something that they see on tape.
Yeah, and also for the young guys and stuff, like, I was at the game last week, and that running back, I don't know his name, he played well, scored 2 touchdowns, and it's going to be hard without Luke Lachey, and hopefully he'll come back next year strong. Eric will have to step up. And who's the other tight end?
Well, there's Eric All,
Yeah, that's
and
Eric.
then they've got Addison Estringa and Steven Stilianos. All those guys will probably play Saturday. They will play as long as they're healthy. We may even see a little bit of Johnny Pascuzzi, the walk on from Kansas City. So we'll see on that.
All right, one last thing. You really like the switching up the uniforms with the white jerseys instead of the gold pants with the black pants? Because I really like those.
Say that again, one more time.
Our uniforms, like we usually wear, the white jerseys and the gold pants, but switching it out with the black pants, I thought that's sick. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to do anything for the performance, but I like the look. I think it'll be cool to see him. I mean, I'm not going to be publishing content, I don't think, on uniform changes, but I do think it's sort of a cool thing. There have been certain uniforms that Iowa has busted out over the years that I haven't really liked, but I think those look cool. Yeah, it's going to be kind of cool to see him wearing something different, I guess.
All right, thanks for having me on. I'll let somebody else take a call.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it, sir. Go Hawks. Absolutely. BB Quasar, call me crazy, but the Hawks are going to destroy Penn State 30-10. Can you imagine what this postgame show would be like on Saturday if somehow Iowa hits 30 and wins by 20? That would be something. Let's go to our next caller. James is on hold. James, welcome.
How you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. First off, obviously, I think the most important thing in the room is we hope Lachey gets healthy. I think that's the most important thing. Obviously, I know his surgery went well, but we just hope he recovers well and all the rehab goes well. I think that's first and foremost. It's bigger than a game. Somebody's health is definitely bigger than the game, and I think that's one thing we all can agree on is just hopefully he gets healthy. And it'll be interesting to see what his choice will be once he comes to that point, whether he'll come back or whether he'll go to the league.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where he shows up on the draft boards. I mean, you probably remember, James, prior to the season beginning, there were some early mock drafts that don't really mean a whole lot that had him as the third or fourth tight end taken off the board. Now, he showed quite a bit in 3 games, albeit against subpar competition. No offense to Iowa State, who just lost to Ohio on Saturday. But my point is, did he show enough to scouts as the guy to warrant, a top 3 to 4 round pick? I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, for sure, especially considering he's going to miss, 9+ weeks, depending on whether you go to a bowl game or whatever, And then on top of that, he might not be able to do the combine, whether or not he's healed 100%. So that could also weigh into the factor of whether he comes back or not, depending on how healthy he is at that point. So that's be something that's interesting to see. But like you said, we have depth there. Obviously, Eric Hall's been in games like this, a lot of games like this at Michigan, so he understands the pressure. And I think that's big. And I think it's going to help Estringa more in the fact that obviously Estringa learns a lot from Lachey, but he's going to get that playing time now, and he's probably the next, obviously, in line behind the other two. So do you think there's any chance? Obviously, Pascuzzi's probably the 4th guy, but because All's a senior, right? And then Stilianos is a senior. So if you lose all those and then you only have Estringa, you're kind of thin a little bit, in fact, of playing time, if that makes sense, like playing time thin behind those guys. Like, what I mean? Like if those guys leave, the guys that play behind them are kind of thin in playing time. But, tight end is always important for Iowa. What's your thoughts on the freshmen if they have to play? Moulton and Terrell Washington.
I like Kamari Moulton, man. The guy runs big for being 5'9", and I don't even know. Do you know how much he weighs, James? I haven't checked his.
Well, I know he's definitely not in the 2s. I don't think he has to be in the 1s, something. But
yeah, he's won something. I mean, last I knew he was like $180. I think
I was gonna say 175, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he's probably around $180. But he's 5'9", and he runs like he's 6'1". He runs big. He runs downhill. So I like that. Didn't quite like the fumble along the goal line on Saturday, James.
For sure, but I think that's something Liddell hopefully can get him out of, for sure. And it's good to get out the way early, especially against a team like that, than it is to fumble in important games, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, you don't want to fumble at all, but if you're going to learn your lesson, it's better to learn your lesson in a game like that than it is in an important game where it's close and you need the ball, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think it could be a good thing in hindsight that Kamari fumbled when he did and get it corrected. And I think it's the same thing with giving up the big plays defensively. They got exposed. Jamari Harris, he struggled at times. I think Xavier Wampa struggled a couple times Saturday, and those things got corrected in the second half. And hopefully, from a macro level, those things will get corrected heading into Saturday. Because Iowa's in the past, and I think back to 2009, and Kirk always brings that game up, but the early 80-yard bomb down the field to start the game. You don't want to start things off in Happy Valley that way. And Iowa got very fortunate. They played their tails off in that game. You had the Adrian Claiborne block punt, changed that game. Of course, Iowa found a way to win. But I guess my point is, like, it's going to be hard to overcome that again. And, just like it's going to be hard to overcome an Iowa pick six. Like, if Iowa can get a pick six in this game, the statistics say it's going to be very difficult for Penn State to overcome. So, each team has to be cognizant of those things. But in a way, I think you could be happy that Iowa got that out of their system, maybe against Western. Same is concerned with the fumble along the goal line. The good news about that, as you said, not only was it against a bad team and a team Iowa dominated, but Steven Silianos recovered it along the goal line. So hopefully Kamari learns from that. I thought Terrell Washington Jr. just looked just fine. I think both those freshmen have really solid futures. I think the Iowa running back room has a really good I think it's got a really good future as far as the next 3 to 4 years, assuming they can keep guys around. Obviously, the transfer portal, when you have so many guys, that's going to become a factor. But, the question is, can they hold on to the ball, right? I mean, in a rainy Beaver Stadium, ball security is going to be of prime importance. And so that's my big question offensively. Can Cade McNamara protect the football better than he did on Saturday? Because he got a little loose with the ball, with his decision making, with his eyes. And can the freshman and LaShawn Williams protect the football, even if it becomes wet out there?
For sure. One thing first off is, like, I don't want to blame Jamari. There's a way big difference of watching film and playing. And we haven't played in over 600 days. It definitely can get a little rough, because he hasn't played in so long. So for him, that was his first look. So obviously getting beat is going to happen. But I think, like you said, it's good against a team like that to happen than it would be against the Penn State. Because if you give up a 80-yard against Penn State, it's going to hurt you a lot more than give up an 80-yard against Western Michigan, because you recover against Western Michigan. If that makes sense, you might not be able to recover against the Penn State.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, get those young guys experience early. I mean, here's the other thing about Jamari Harris's suspension. Even though he struggled in his comeback, he was able to struggle and win against Western. And then you have a guy like Deshaun Lee who now has experience. One guy goes down, Cooper goes down, or somehow Jamari goes down Saturday. Now you have a guy in Deshaun Lee who's played in a couple of big games, including a road game at Iowa State. So, 3-0, maybe not the prettiest 3-0, but also not the ugliest. They've got some advantages maybe that perhaps Penn State doesn't have, because Penn State hasn't really been tested yet.
What's one position that you're, like, not injury wise, so I'm not counting tight ends or running backs, right? What's one position that you're most intrigued by, like, in Saturday, like, watching?
Well, probably running back. Yeah, probably running back, because, like I said, I just think this game is really going to come down to how both teams protect the football. Illinois lost the turnover battle 5-0 on Saturday against Penn State, and they only lost by 17. So if you're -5 in turnovers, I think the data would normally indicate you're going to lose by 20 plus, probably closer to 25 or 30. And so the fact that Illinois only lost by 17, and you look at the rest of the statistics, a lot of penalties called. I think Penn State had 7 penalties. Keep in mind, Iowa's only had 1 in the last 2 weeks. 7 penalties on Penn State this past week. I think Illinois had the same number of first downs. Yardage totals were somewhat similar. Now, granted, Illinois is playing from behind. The game changes a bit. The stats change a little bit when you're playing from behind or you're protecting a lead like Penn State was. But I'm just saying, I don't know that without watching that game from start to finish, and I've yet to be able to watch the condensed version of that game, and I will do that before publishing my preview tomorrow. I just don't know that Penn State was as dominant as the score would show if you take away the Luke Altmaier interceptions, and you can't do that. But the guy threw 4 picks, and they had 5 turnovers in the game. Now, I give Drew Aller and that Penn State offense lots of credit because they did not turn the ball over. They did protect the ball. So these are two teams that do value the football, but in wet, slippery conditions, turnovers are absolutely going to be a factor. Low-scoring games, turnovers are huge in low-scoring games, especially if you can turn those turnovers into points like Iowa did against Iowa State. And let's not forget, too, James, this game historically, and I'm talking like 2009, 2008. I mean, I can think of the 2009, you had the blocked punt by Adrian Claiborne. 2008, you had the interception on the final Penn State drive of the game from Darryl Clark, interception by Tyler Sash. Iowa drove the field, scored a field goal to win that game from Daniel Murray. 2010, I think Iowa had a pick six from Sean Prater.
Yeah.
2017, you had the blocked field goal by one of the Nelsons. I can't remember if it was Anthony. I think it was Anthony, not Matt. One of the Nelsons. And I'm trying to think. You had
the Davion Nixon pick.
Davion Nixon. You had the Davion Nixon swim move and pick six.
Yeah.
And let's not forget 2018, you had two botched long snaps on punts for Penn State that turned into safeties. And Iowa ran a trick play, a fake field goal, and a beautiful pass by Colton Rastetter over the shoulder of defensive lineman Sam Brinks for a touchdown. There's been a lot of weird plays, most of which have come with special teams and defense that have determined outcomes of this series. And that's like every single year. And then you got to go back to 2021. You could argue that play early, if you'll recall, obviously they had the Sean Clifford thing where he got hit and knocked out of the game. Justin Jacobs, though, had a pick down near the goal line. And, I think it was an interception inside the Penn State 10 that even though Iowa didn't get in, it turned into 3 points. And, 3 points is 3 points in a game like this. If you can create a turnover and, again, translate that directly into points, that's huge.
Is it supposed to rain all day, do you know? Like for the whole game, or is it supposed to stop at any point?
The chances of rain, last I looked this earlier today, have actually gone down. Let me look at the most recent forecast, and this is according to. Well, I can actually let's just throw it up on the channel here. So State College. I have to do this. Let's see if I can share my screen. So yeah, this is according to the Weather Channel. Last I saw, the forecast went down to share audio. Okay, so this is, hopefully everybody can see this. Let's get rid of, sorry, Steve, we're going to get rid of your comment. We're going to get rid of this banner so everybody can see the forecast for Saturday. And I'll make this a little bit bigger. I'm still kind of learning how to use this this new StreamYard setup. Let's see if, okay, made that a little bit bigger. All right, now let's zoom in here. So yeah, here's the forecast for Saturday. So as you can see, 65 is the high, showers, 42%. And you can see the chances are pretty steady. At one point, it looked like there was a greater chance of rain in the evening. Perhaps that's still, it says 40% chance. You see a higher humidity in the evening. Looks like temperatures probably in the low 60s, high 50s by kickoff, which is, of course, just short of 7 p.m. Central Time, which would be, obviously around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So not much rain. So we'll see. 43% is 43%. But my guess is it's going to rain. There are a lot of showers forecasted for the weekend in general. So we'll see if it moves up or moves back a little bit. But it just seems like every year this game is a rainy game, especially when it's out at Penn State.
For sure. And it'll be interesting to see. And hopefully we can get the win. It'd be a big win. I feel like for team confidence, obviously. A win's always good for team confidence, but especially one against a top 10 team. But it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully we stay healthy throughout the game. I think that's kind of been the bug the last 2 weeks. We've won, but injuries have also kind of hurt the team a little bit in a way. So hopefully we can win and stay healthy as well.
Absolutely, sir.
Enjoy night.
Positivity. Are we going to hear from you post-game show?
Yeah, it's kind of late, but I ain't got nothing to do the next day, so
you ain't got nothing to do the next day.
I got to do it like 6:30 at night, but I should be all right.
So you're going to be up as long as the show's going, right?
Yeah, I'll probably be up for the whole thing.
You're the man, James.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
I've enjoyed it.
You too. Yeah, post-game show on Saturday night's going to be interesting. Keep in mind you got a 6:40 p.m. Central Time kick, which means we're probably done with the game by 10, right? Am I doing the math on that right? Probably done maybe just short of 10, which means we probably start the show by 10. And if we can keep it to 2 hours, we're done by midnight. If we go 3, we're pushing Sunday morning. So yeah, I guess that's the case. Let's go to back to our phone line. We're going to put our next caller on hold, and we're going to go back to our phone line. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey. This is Hogan in Knoxville.
Hey, Hogan. How are you?
Doing well. Just wanted to ask you a quick question. Are you pumped for this weekend?
Of course I am.
I can tell by some of your callers earlier they didn't sound as pumped, but I want to make sure everyone's jazzed up because this is a good Penn State team, and I'm looking forward to us playing this weekend. And
I think Iowa's got a shot at winning this game. I don't know that Penn State is quite as good as the little number next to their name. I don't know that. If I'm a Penn State fan, as talented as Drew Aller is, I don't know that I totally trust him in a moment like this, just because I haven't seen him really. I'd have to go back. I believe what I was told by, we talked to Marty Leap from the Penn State Rivals site yesterday over on Mark Rogers Network. One thing he said is that Drew Aller did play in a whiteout game a year ago, I believe against Minnesota, but I think he played when the game was out of hand. So
yeah, it was in limited snaps, but
yeah,
I don't think you could say that he was, a starting quarterback in a whiteout situation.
Yeah,
and certainly not against an opponent like Iowa. So.
He has not proven to be able. I mean, he may prove that Saturday, and he was good week 1 against West Virginia. West Virginia's terrible. He has not proven it against a real good opponent in a huge moment when a game has been in doubt. So that's a question mark I have. And again, based on the numbers, I wasn't blown away by Penn State's rushing game, even though they're really talented back there. And I've heard question marks about them at receiver. They're really talented on defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, like I said earlier. I heard people earlier today bring up the Iowa defense and claim that, well, it looks like Iowa's defense is taking a step back. I think that's foolish to even suggest. That may be the case when we look back at the end of the year. But man, I've learned not to discount Phil Parker, and they have held their opponents to 14, 13, and 10 respectively. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the over-under is this weekend, but I saw it was Penn State's favored by 14.5 points. And I know you don't delve too much into betting lines, but I certainly think if history serves us correctly, I think it will be a low scoring affair this weekend.
It looks like I'm trying to find the over under here. Over under is, you're right, 14.5. Over under is 40. Yeah, I mean, again, you're right. I don't bet, never would, but yeah, I don't think they reach that number. I would be surprised if they do, but at the same time, I mean, Iowa, we know this, and Mark Rogers talked about this today. Well, he recorded it yesterday, released it today on his Iowa channel. He's right in that Iowa is the exception to the rule, and we all know this being Iowa fans, but it's not normal for a team to be able to year after year, game after game, create scores and score so often with defense and special teams. So, and I think back to Rutgers last year on the road. Iowa scored 27. Why? Because they scored 14 on defense with 2 pick sixes, or, well, I should say a strip and a score and then a pick six. I mean, maybe that happens Saturday, and that's 14 free points, and maybe you do get to 20. So it's possible, but I agree with you. I think it'd be hard to count on 40 between these two teams on Saturday.
Yeah, Corey, and I wanted to just kind of walk through. It's kind of an eerily similar situation to what we had in 2021. It seems like, and maybe it parallels a little bit more to 2018, what we saw with Iowa, Penn State to start the season. But if we look back at our 2021 season, we started against Indiana in a game in which we had 2 pick sixes. Then we went and beat a good, well, at the time, a good Iowa State team via a scoop score, fumble recovery touchdown. Fast forward a little bit to Maryland, which we had, I believe, 6 or 7 interceptions in that game.
7 turnovers, 6 interceptions. Yep.
Yep. And then we go and beat number 4 Penn State 23-20. But the next week, and let's play a little hypothetical game. Let's say we do beat Penn State this weekend. How do we avoid having a lackluster performance similar to what we had against Purdue the next week in 2021 when we take on Michigan State at home in a night game next weekend?
That's a great question. I hate to say this because maybe that's an overconfidence. I guess I can say this. I hope the team doesn't say this. Michigan State's a disaster right now. If they trip up against Michigan State, and by the way, that game's under the lights. You probably know that. That's a night game in Kinnick. I find it hard to believe that Iowa could somehow have an emotional letdown in any Big Ten game under the lights, especially against a team as funked up right now as Michigan State is with the controversy surrounding their head coach, who now reports are that he is being dismissed. Now, maybe that changes how they view things. Maybe they'll rally around whoever the interim coach. I know it's one of their assistants coaching the team right now, but I think the Michigan State game is the perfect game for the week following this one. Now, you got to take care of this one first, regardless of what happens here. If Iowa beats Penn State, there's going to be people that are starting to call for, if they can put that together on the road in Happy Valley. I know I'm jumping the gun, but there will be the 11-1, 12-0 talk, given the rest of the schedule.
Certainly, and as we've seen, the Big Ten West has not been doing very well so far this season. So
no,
I think if we can take care of business, and that's a tall task, but it certainly gives us, to use a baseball term, an insurance run, where we could go and slip up against a Nebraska or Wisconsin, but we still have that insurance run in our back pocket.
Now, insurance run from what standpoint, as far as the West is concerned?
Yeah, in order to make our way to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I don't know that you have any. With this schedule, I don't know that Iowa has any insurance game, so to speak, as it relates to wanting to do bigger things like make the Final Four. I don't know if that's, people, Iowa fans may laugh at that notion. I know Cooper DeJean, he told me on this very show that's one of their goals is to win a Big Ten title and make a run at the college football playoff. Maybe that's way above their pay grade, so to speak. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think the West can be probably won. I think it will be won by a team that's probably 7-2 at best. Now maybe Iowa, they beat Penn State. Maybe they do go 8-1 or 9-0. But I could see the winner of the West being 6-3 or 7-2. I saw someone the other day say, well, they're probably going to be 5-4. I don't even know mathematically how that works out. I suppose that's possible, but I would doubt it. But you're right. You win this game, a game you're not expected to win, and it can turn the tables.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, I think, as far as where the West will be won, I think as things have gone, I think it will be kind of a showdown between Iowa and Wisconsin. That's maybe a de facto Big Ten West championship game. But we'll see how things play out. Wisconsin obviously hasn't proven themselves to be of that much quality this year, so we'll see how they trend.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll likely be. I think Minnesota's schedule. Minnesota might be their team competitively that could give Iowa a run for its money. Not to discount, Illinois already, but they really haven't been impressive on either side of the ball. You're right about Wisconsin. They lost at Washington State, but they had a really good second half last week against Georgia Southern, and they're probably going to figure it out. I've thought all along that it was going to take them some time with Luke Fickell to figure things out. But by the time they play Iowa, in mid-October, my guess is they've maybe figured it out. Now, hopefully, if you're an Iowa fan, hopefully you're looking at Wisconsin saying, hey, they've already dropped a game or two in the Big Ten by that point. But I agree with you. It'll probably come down to those two teams. And they have the most favorable schedules, Illinois being the other team. those three teams have the most favorable schedules in the division.
Yep, and Illinois having already lost to Penn State, that they're kind of fighting from behind. But obviously, if they sweep our division, that they could, still hold their own destiny.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Good point. Illinois is a game behind already, or half game behind.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking my call, Corey. I'll hop off.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate the phone call. Good phone call. Appreciate everybody being here so far. We're about 40. I can't believe 40 minutes have flown by. Appreciate everybody being here, and all good points. Some good calls here early with some really good substance. Like everything that everybody has said is fair. Steven says, because I watch the Voice of College Football, I have been washed up on this shore by the algorithm. Send some change to the hardworking Corey. And I believe Steven is a Penn State fan. So I appreciate the super chat, and you're more than welcome here, Steven. This is kind of like I flash back to 2 years ago with the Iowa-Michigan game in the Big Ten Championship game. And I want to say enemies that I earned by simply making a prediction that Wolverine fans did not like. And yet somehow I became endeared to a certain faction of Michigan fans. And I'm fine with that. I know some Penn State fans were getting after me in 2021. Maybe the same applies. All the Nittany Lion fans that want to stick around here and for the post-game Saturday, have at it. We look forward to talking with you. Brian in the chat wants me to rank my top 5 Iowa Penn State games. That's a fabulous question, Brian. And you're kind of putting me on the spot with that. Keep in mind my knowledge of the history of this series. Of course, Penn State joined the conference during this century. So, when did Penn State join the conference? This is my limited. Let's see, like Mark Rogers would be ashamed of me right now. This is a good join the Big Ten? This is a good Google question. 1990. See, that's how little I know. My knowledge of this history is the 21st century, is the Kirk Ferentz era. So my top 5 games of this series, I guess if it's from an Iowa fan exclusive perspective or from a college football fan's perspective in general, I think that probably differs. I would probably say my favorite game was 2008, and that might surprise some people. That was really the first Iowa game where I remember, and how old was I then? I wasn't even a teen yet. Think about that. That might make you feel old. I apologize if it does. But yeah, like I remember that game vividly, and just the Tyler Sash interception, the DJK pass interference on the final drive of the game, the Daniel Murray kick, the crowd rushing the field early, and the security having to get people off the field. And then, of course, the crowd rushing the field after the final squib kick ended things. I would probably say that'd be number 1 in my mind, because it was one of the first unbelievable memories as an Iowa fan, a young fan. 2009 would be high on the list. That'd probably be my number 2. And frankly, I'll throw a couple of games that people probably will despise because of their fandom. 2017 was an incredible college football game. Like, go back and watch Iowa Penn State 2017. Incredible game. Josie Jewell versus Saquon Barkley. Juwan Johnson on the final catch. You had was it the Trace McSorley? What did he swing a baseball bat, an imaginary baseball bat? Was that his shtick back then? I remember Josie Jewell picking him off, and he kind of mocked the baseball swing from Trace, and then Trace punts the ball into the crowd to end the game, and there's controversy. That was just a fascinating game. It was a night game on ABC. And then 2018, I've talked about that game up and down. That was a miserable ending for Iowa. But again, I think back to the memories. That game stands out vividly. And as far as number 5, man, I probably have to go 2021, even though that offense was bad. I wasn't in Kinnick that week, but Don Patterson's talked about it. He thinks that might have been the loudest he's ever heard Kinnick Stadium, and that says a lot because he coached in that 1985 Michigan-Iowa game. So those would probably be my top 5. That's a great question, Brian, and I'd have to spend some more time thinking about it. Obviously, 2016, very unmemorable. 2012, very unmemorable. 2019, you had the circus catch from Brandon Smith, but in large part, that game was unmemorable. And like I said, my memory of Iowa Penn State didn't go much before 2008. All right, let's go back to our call-in line, to our StreamYard line. Bobby's on the line. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Welcome. This is my first time doing this, so I had to set up the account.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, Bobby. Appreciate you jumping on.
I just had a couple of questions.
Okay.
First one, how do you see us winning? Like, in my eyes, I see Cade being better than probably the past two games, and then the defense probably, I would say, living up to the Iowa defense hype. But, like, in your mind, if we were to win this game, how do you see it happening?
Well, I'll say this. In my greatest dreams, if you will, I see Cade McNamara and Seth Anderson hooking up for like a 75-yard bomb at some point, and I see Deontay Vines juking guys out of their shoes, and I see a burst of lightning from LaShawn Williams. Now, in reality, Bobby, I think the easiest way to see Iowa winning this game is what you just said, keeping the score low. And frankly, Cade needs to play better. I think he'd be the first to say he needs to play better. He threw some ill-advised passes. I know on that pick down in the end zone at the end of the first half, he stared his receiver down. It was a bad play call, bad decision to throw the ball by the coaching staff in general. But he needs to play better. I just think he needs to avoid the big mistakes. I don't know how many yards he needs. I still double down that this Iowa offense is predicated on having a good game manager. They need more action in the passing game, no question about it. They need a more consistent run game. But in a game like this on the road, especially in a game where the weather might be a factor, they just got to protect the football. So they win this game. I'll say this, Bobby. They win this game if they can be at least +1 in turnovers. +2 or +3 would be fabulous. I don't think that's as likely. But if they can be +1 or +2 in turnovers and perhaps get a special teams play. It seems like they always need one against Penn State. They usually seem to get one, whether it be a fake or, an Ontario Thompson block punt. Maybe Drew Stevens makes a 50-plus yarder in the mud. Something like that. I don't think it's that far-fetched. And if they can do that, I anticipate the defense will do its job. Like I said, I'm actually happy they got exposed a bit against Western because I think they'll get those things corrected.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think a win's not going to look great on paper, but yeah, I think it would look good in the eyes of an Iowa fan. Mostly just the defense keeping us in and something crazy happening. Usually how it goes.
Does anybody even nationally, though, Bobby, does anybody nationally think that there's any chance these two teams go for 30 or 40? It's so... obviously maybe Iowa's offense is a little less predictable from a prediction standpoint than it was last year because of the change at quarterback. But still they've scored 41 against Western Michigan, one of the worst FBS teams in the country. Scored 24 against Utah State. They scored 23 20 against Iowa State. Man, I can't imagine predicting Iowa to score 20 or more against this Penn State team. Maybe they will. But I think most national pundits would agree that whoever wins this game is probably first one to 20 wins.
Yeah, I would see if Penn State gets anywhere above 24, I think that's when it's out of reach, unless some just crazy stuff on defense happens.
Right.
The other question, I just had like two more. The other one was in a loss, what would be like, okay, still like high hopes for the rest of the season, and what in like a loss would you be like concerned for the rest of the games of the season?
So let me just repeat what you're saying so I make sure I understand it correctly. You're asking if they lose, what's the worst way for them to lose, or what's the best way for them to lose?
Not that, like, if they lose 48-10, I would be concerned about the Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Nebraska game. If they lose 17-13, but look competent on defense, and it's just Penn State's also really good at defense, you would still be like high hopes for the rest of the season. Like, is there any way they lose this that you're looking back at the rest of the games being like, we might actually lose this or that? Because I know like a lot of people are like, Iowa's defense looks not as good as the past few years. Obviously, like watching the games, I don't think they still look good. But is there any loss that you're like more concerned about the rest of the games in the season after.
Well, I'll say this. I would rather Iowa lose to if they're going to lose to Penn State, I'd rather them score 20 plus and lose, because hopefully that's an indication. That might just be an indication they struck gold on special teams and defense. But I'd like to think that means Iowa's run game kept it going after last week. And maybe they figured some things out in the pass game, because even if they give up points to Penn State now in September, I just have so much confidence in Phil Parker. It's just like at halftime last week. Now, granted, that was against a terrible Western Michigan team, but I don't know if you watched my halftime stream, Bobby, but I made the comment during that stream that, Iowa's not going to lose this game. What they do, they come out and, score 25 points or 27 unanswered points and, hold Western to 35 yards in the second half. So that's what I expect from Phil's guys. If they struggle Saturday, which is possible against a really good quarterback and a bunch of skill position talent, that'll be disappointing. But hopefully that also means the Iowa offense maybe pulled their side of the bargain, which we haven't seen them do. And how, I don't even know. When's the last time the offense has carried the defense? You probably have to go back like 3 years to actually see when that's happened. So that would be a breath of fresh air, because I'd have confidence that Phil could figure it out. If they lose, 20-3 or 25-3 or 30-3, obviously I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to be concerned, because the offense probably didn't show anything to make me feel positive about the future, and the defense didn't look as good as it normally does. So that's what I would say. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think personally, I don't really see a win. I can see them winning, but take my heart out of it as a Hawkeye fan. I see it more probably going to lose. I see Penn State as up there with Michigan as the best in the East. I personally would put them above Ohio State. I know some people wouldn't do that, but just watching them, I think they look good. The other question I had, and this is just a quick question, because I recently just got into watching Iowa football more religiously. Do the cross-divisional games, for the record to go to the Big Ten championship, a loss here, compared to playing teams in the West, how does that work for the record going into the?
Yeah, it's all about Big Ten records, so it's the same. The only difference is, from a practical standpoint, Bobby, it kind of counts less, because it's a double whammy if Iowa loses to Wisconsin, because it gives them a win and an Iowa loss. And if you look at the tiebreak scenarios, the first tiebreaker for a two-team tie is head-to-head. So obviously a loss to Penn State doesn't hurt you as much as it does to Wisconsin, but it is the same from a win-loss standpoint in the Big Ten, and that ultimately is what determines who wins the division. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you. That's
I'm
really all I had.
I'm just curious. Can I ask you how old you are?
26.
26. So what got you into Iowa football recently? I'm just curious.
I was a freshman in high school, and I had some friends that went to Iowa. I actually went to UNI, but and then I went to, I think the first game that I can remember was, I think it was it 2016 or 2017, the game-winning field goal over Michigan.
2016.
2016. I was there for that, rushed the field. I remember, somebody took CJ Beathard's helmet, and I remember I was near him and he couldn't find the helmet and everything. And then I just think going to the games, I just really enjoyed it. But younger, I would watch the games, I just didn't care that much. And then I would say the last win actually versus Penn State in 21, I think what got me into just caring about watching more beyond just if it's on sort of thing. I have a friend that goes to Penn State, so every time they play, it's a little bit of he likes to talk a little crap about it, but
well,
I get it.
I'll praise you. I'll praise you for this, Bobby. It's courageous of you to become so invested in Iowa football during such a low point in the history of Iowa's offense. The only way you can go is up from these last 2 years offensively. So you're to be commended for doing that.
Watching the games with my dad, and I'm this. Some of these just kind of, they hurt a little bit. Even in a win, you're I don't know if I really enjoyed that whole process. I enjoy watching the defense play. I really
Oh.
enjoy watching
Yeah.
just what the defense can do, and then just I love college football, so I'll stay up and watch the late games. Like the Colorado State game was, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was super fun. They did not.
Great.
Neither team looked as good as I thought they were going to look. I came out of that thinking like Colorado is going to get destroyed by Oregon. Is my main takeaway from that one.
And you and I are, I don't know that they'll get destroyed, but you and I are on the same page. I watched that Colorado State game. Very entertaining. Some dirty stuff going on in that rivalry. Neither of those teams are very good. I
No.
just, maybe I'll eat those words, but neither of those teams are very good. Nebraska's not very good. TCU, might be better than they played week one. Obviously, they're coming off a trip to the championship game, but no, you're right. I don't think either of those teams are very good. But I'm with you. I'm the same way. I love college football, and I love watching. That's why I love bowl season. And people give me crap all the time for watching all the bowl games. I love college football. It's just how it is. And when you have to suffer through the Iowa offense, you enjoy watching other offenses at times.
Oh yeah, I've been enjoying watching the Washington games. In my head, I've got Washington winning it all. I think just watching those guys play, they look good.
Yeah,
All
they
right.
did last week. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Hope you have a great rest of this. Is the first time I ever got one of these live, and I've been listening to them working at home just every now and again, or opening. I'm like, put it on.
Appreciate that, Bobby. Don't be a stranger to the show. Feel free to call in during a post-game show sometime.
All right. Maybe Saturday. We'll see.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you. All right. Appreciate Bobby and all of our callers here. Kelly reminding everybody to smash the like button. Smash it. Don't smash it so hard that your mouse breaks or your keypad breaks, but be sure to smash that like button and help the channel. A couple other ways you can hit to help the channel. First of all, if you haven't done so, folks, please subscribe. It's amazing, and this is I've been the YouTube thing has been the last couple of years. My background is podcasting and radio, but this is a different experience, I guess I should say. And it's amazing the number of unsubscribed people watch the channel regularly, and that's great. I appreciate everybody watching the channel, but I'm always surprised by the people that choose not to subscribe. So please subscribe if you watch the show regularly. It does help, and if you enjoy the content, please tell others about it. Of course, you can also donate to the channel by clicking any of the links in our description. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, how do I donate by credit card? Go to PayPal. You can click on the PayPal link. You do not have to have a PayPal account, and you can donate by credit card. You can either make that a one-time donation or a recurring donation. All those help. And I will say this, and I'll say this very tactfully. We appreciate everybody here, but it's amazing. I think I can speak for other viewers because I don't watch a lot of other YouTubers, and I try to watch Mark Rogers as much as I can because he's a good friend of mine and worked with him for the last couple of years. But I can tell you, I'm not the only one who experiences this. You end up having your small group of people that are extremely eager to donate and are extremely eager to support in some way financially, whether that be through purchasing your apparel, your merchandise, donating through PayPal, through Super Chat, through whatever the case may be. And I appreciate those people immensely. But man, it would be so helpful if we could spread that out among other people and not put that burden on a few people. But that's kind of the nature of the business. And it is a business, trying to grow things. But thank you to everybody for the support you can show. And I know some people aren't in a position to support financially through donations. So for whatever you can do, thank you for that. And subscribing, hitting the like button, those all help immensely. Let's get to our next caller. Jackson's been on hold. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Corey. How's it going tonight?
It's going good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've looked at the line for Iowa Penn State, and I see that Penn State is favored by 15 points. Now, I know Penn State has been beating the spread all season this year, but I don't really think that Penn State's going to be winning by 15 or more against Iowa. I mean, I think it's going to be a closer game than the experts have it.
Well, it's interesting that everybody seems to be saying that, including myself, including Mark Rogers, including yourself. Sometimes the Sharks know more than we do, right? But yeah, that seems like an odd line. And I'm guessing that line will go down as we get closer to kickoff. Just a guess,
Yeah.
especially if the weather stays murky. I just can't. I agree with you. I have a hard time expecting Penn State to win by more than 2 touchdowns against the Iowa defense in bad weather. But who knows? I mean, they've done it
Yeah.
before. I mean, 2016 was a rout, but it's not the norm.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun watching a little bit of Iowa Penn State on CBS because I'll be flipping between this game and Ohio State Notre Dame and a few other games, of course. And
I'll be interested to see TV ratings because man, Saturday's loaded, as you know, 6 ranked matchups, and that evening slate is going to be pretty cool to see. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Iowa, Penn State. What are the other games at night? Is it like Oregon State? I think they play on Fox. Did they not?
Yeah, Oregon State, Washington State, Texas, and the Baylor Bear Necessities are going to be on ABC.
Kind of an odd ABC game. Baylor's not very good.
I guess they got to find something.
Yeah, Arkansas, LSU is part of the night slate. USC, Arizona State's really late. Cal, Washington's really late. North Carolina, Pitt. Yeah, good
Pitt's
slate.
dangerous at home. That's the thing about them. They are dangerous against ranked teams.
Who's this?
Pittsburgh. They tend to be dangerous against ranked teams in the top 25 when they go to Pittsburgh.
And man, what do we got early in the day? Colorado, Oregon at 2:30.
Yeah.
We've got a sneaky fun matchup between Rutgers and Michigan as far as a noon Eastern kickoff on BTN. That should be an intriguing game. Florida State at Clemson, UCLA, Utah, Ole Miss, Bama.
BYU, Kansas on ESPN. That's a pretty good underrated matchup. Cincinnati's Big 12 debut at home on Big Noon kickoff. Well, their first conference game as a Big 12 member. Central Florida going to Manhattan, Kansas on Fox Sports 1. That looks to be another fun one. But I also wrote down some stats that I looked at for Iowa Penn State.
Okay.
I couldn't help but notice that Iowa is 7th in points per game on offense in the Big Ten. I'm impressed with the numbers going up. I want to see those numbers go up for Iowa.
Well, that's interesting to me as well, Jackson. I haven't even looked at those numbers. Somebody tweeted that out earlier today that Iowa is 7th in the Big Ten. Obviously, the 41 points helps immensely. But it's fair. I mean, I think Fox tweeted out this evening. They compared. I guess I could share that graphic. And this isn't breaking any news to anybody, but let me pull up the graphic that I actually sent this over to Mark Rogers himself. Let me pull this up here. Yeah, so
I tend to send some stats to people every chance I get.
Yeah, credit to Big Ten Breakfast. Big Ten Breakfast on Twitter for tagging me in this. This is here's the
oh sweet, what's he serving for breakfast?
Some good college football.
Oh sweet, my favorite kind.
Here's the tweet. So this was comparison week 1 to week 3 last year.
Wow.
As you can see, the difference in points from one year to the next. Now, again, not apples to apples because these are different opponents in different seasons, but 7 points week 1 in 2022 compared to 24 this year, 7 in week 2 of last year, 20 this year, 27 last year against Nevada, 41 week 3 against Western Michigan this year. So they've over doubled their points totals. Now, 28.3 points per game is not earth-shattering, but certainly is comparative to what Iowa was doing at this point last year.
Yeah.
And last year, one of those games was against an FCS opponent, albeit a good one in South Dakota State.
Oh, yeah. They are pretty good. I have a feeling that one of the keys to victory is red zone defense because I just looked at the stats. Iowa is tied 19th for red zone defense. Penn State is tied 109th in red zone defense. Let's get to the red zone offense. Iowa's 31st in red zone offense, and Penn State is 20th in the red zone offense. So if Iowa can make some stops on the red zone offense, put some stops on Drew Allar, that can help them pull off a little bit of a road upset.
Well, so a couple things, and Don Patterson would be able to tell you better. I don't know exactly. Those are NCAA stats you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they kind of track red zone points kind of oddly. So, like, I don't know how do you even know the metric they use to measure red zone efficiency? Is that just points per game out of the red zone, or percentage of times that they score when they get to the end zone or the red zone?
I think it's like percentage of time when they score in the red zone, like field goals and touchdowns and all that.
So that's the hard part, is because if you're always settling for field goals, you're going to be 100%, but that doesn't mean you're one of the better red zone offenses. So Don Patterson actually has a metric, and we'll have to ask Don about this. He's got a metric regarding red zone offense that is really fascinating, and maybe I'll try to get with him before the game on Saturday. But there is a different way to he's kind of come up with his own metric. But you're right, red zone offense is really important. There's a big difference between 7 points and 3 points, and frankly, Iowa's red zone offense really hasn't been very good the last couple of years. It was nice to see Iowa convert some in the red zone this past week. They're obviously very solid in the place kicking game, and they converted a 2-point conversion against Western Michigan, which I don't know the last time they converted a 2-pointer in recent times. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I saw the Iowa Western Michigan game on the Bad Beats with Scott Van Pelt Monday night. So that was a nice sight to see.
I did not see that, but that doesn't surprise. I thought about Scott Van Pelt when that happened.
Yeah, I feel bad for some of the people that had Western Michigan plus 24.5. But yeah,
that's why you don't bet on. That's why you don't bet on sports. That's one of the reasons why you don't bet on sports, Jackson.
Or just don't bet on certain games. Just kind of be careful with the Iowa games, especially in Iowa versus Group of 5 games.
That too. Absolutely.
So I'm pretty excited to see this game. And Michigan State, that's going to be an easy win for Iowa. Michigan State just wants to get through 2023.
They don't look very good. No, you're right about that. I don't know about I'd say an easy game because it's a Big Ten game, but boy, you're right. They look like a disaster right now.
Oh, yeah. It's a complete and total dung heap in East Lansing.
And the schedule, as favorable as it was for Iowa preseason, it's even more favorable now with the Mel Tucker situation. So,
oh yeah,
do you like that or not?
Oh yeah, I mean Northwestern and Michigan State, they got the most depressing stories in all of the Big Ten.
Yeah, well, they do. They've had a rough few years, and what's crazy about it is they've managed to win a Peach Bowl like 3 years ago. Or 2 years, was that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
They won a Peach Bowl 2 years ago, and yet here we are. They're probably going to be able to fire Mel Tucker with cause, which is going to save them a lot of money. But what a foolish thing from Mel Tucker. Whether regardless of what's right or wrong, to even I don't want to use the word flirt because that's not. I don't want to take the
doing the dirty.
No, I don't want to take the story. I don't want to think that I'm contextualizing the story. To even go down that road when that's the one thing they could kill your contract is a situation like that. It was just, not good judgment on his part, but he's not the first.
Look, if I had a $77 million buyout, I'd do everything I could to protect that investment.
You would think.
Yeah. So that's what you got to do is don't do anything stupid and you're good to go.
Yep. Before I let you go, Jackson, can I get a Harvey Updike Jr.?
A lot of people going to be mad. We're all damn tired.
Thanks, Jackson. Appreciate it, sir. Oh, I love the Harvey Updike Jr. If anybody forgot about him, go Google Harvey Updike Jr. All right, let's get back to our phone line. We've had a couple callers on hold for quite some time. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey. This is Connor. I called in I think once before, towards the end of last season, just after Cade did his commitment. But I want to call again today just because I want to talk about some of the things I'm more optimistic about for the upcoming Penn State games. First thing being, I really don't think Penn State really looked all that good against Illinois, especially with having 5 turnovers for what people are calling an elite offense. I just don't think 30 points was enough to show with 5 turnovers to be elite.
Yeah, I mean, again, having not watched the entire game back, I would say the same thing. And based on what I've heard, you're not the only person that thinks they're maybe a little overrated. Now, they've got a lot of talent. I know Mark Rogers has talked about the talent they have on the back end. They got a lot of future pros, a lot of athleticism on that defense. But, we keep saying this, but if I was going to win this game, it's likely, almost certainly going to be scored in the teens. So, okay, great defense versus great defense. We know that, but does Penn State have, they have guys that can bust a couple of plays and run away with this thing early? I don't know that they do. They've got a talented quarterback, of course, but you're right. They needed 5 turnovers to win by 17 points this last week. So maybe that'll be a learning experience for them, and they'll, capitalize a couple turnovers into a 17-point lead this week. I don't know, but I'm with you. I wasn't blown away by what I did see out of Penn State Saturday.
I just don't think they're going to see 5 turnovers. Iowa traditionally doesn't turn over the ball very much. I mean, Cade's got 3 interceptions. Maybe he should have had another one last week, but the one against Iowa State was arguably a missed pass interference call, but
Correct.
3 interceptions all year, and we haven't lost a fumble yet that I know of. I could be wrong. But I think Iowa isn't really going to turn the ball much over. And I think if it does rain, like you've been talking about the possibility of, Drew Aller's already had quite a bit of incompletions, especially last week. I was just looking at the play-by-play, and he missed on quite a few passes. And I don't think the rain, I think the whiteout might actually hurt Drew Aller a little bit, being that he's only played in 1. They weren't even meaningful snaps. I think that might put a little bit of pressure on him.
Yeah, I've said that for months. I've thought, he's going to be in a unique situation. Of course, they opened with West Virginia, but West Virginia is not very good. So that's a factor. And yeah, has he really played in a game this big when the game's been in doubt? No, not really. Maybe he'll rise up to the occasion. He was a 5-star, and again, he's really talented. But if Iowa can create pressure in the backfield, he's not as mobile as Trace McSorley was. He's not as mobile as Sean Clifford was. So that's a positive, because if you look at some of the recent games against Penn State, Iowa's been hurt by running backs who were a threat to run. Let's not forget 2 years ago in 2021, Sean Clifford had a lot of, before he got knocked out of that game, had a lot of completions while he was on the run. And, it's one of those hard things as a defender to weigh, where to go when a quarterback's approaching the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden he looks down the field and you've cheated a couple of steps or even 1 step, and all of a sudden you get beat. That's been a problem when you've had mobile quarterbacks there. But I don't think Drew Aller is that type of a guy based on what I've seen, what I've heard. So that could be an advantage. I think if you're Iowa, you stay disciplined, and Phil will have these guys ready.
Yeah, another thing I think this is, I say this with a grain of salt, but I think this might be kind of a coming out party for the defensive line and the ends. Really, I mean, just altogether the front 4. I think this will be a big game for them. I think they'll probably record a couple of sacks with what you're saying, him not being as mobile. Iowa's seen a lot of mobility from quarterbacks recently, which I think has hurt people like Joe Evans not being able to get to the quarterback. He's creating pressure, but they're getting out of the pocket. And I think Joe Evans is probably going to get home for 1, and I hope to see Y.A. Black get home for 1 as well.
Boy, it'd be huge if they could get to the quarterback. Haven't been able to do that yet this year. They've had some QB pressures. I don't know that they have the dynamic pass rusher like they have with A.J. Epinesa and Lucas Van Ness and Drew Ott, but maybe Deontay Craig has a breakout game. I'd love to see Aaron Graves, have a breakout game, because he's still a young guy, but he's He's got some unbelievable upside. I think he's got a future in the league as well. You talked about Y.A. Black and his size. He's yet to tap into maybe his potential. So they've got upside there. And the one guy, I had a long conversation with Elliot Clough earlier today. Ontario Thompson probably isn't going to get in on defense because they're just really deep on the line. But wouldn't it be nice to see him bust through on a punt and maybe get a block? So yeah, you're right. They've got some defensive linemen who have a chance to make a difference Saturday. It'd be great to see a breakout game for multiple defensive linemen.
So one last thing, I'm just going to ask this question to you is, do you think Brian Ferentz or Kirk? I know that's kind of a depending on. Brian's calling the plays, but do you think they're willing to scheme against Penn State, maybe call up a few trick plays like they have in the past against big teams?
That's a great question, and keep in mind, and I've talked about this a little bit on the channel, and I've asked Don Patterson about it. I think I've asked LeVar Woods about it. I think I've asked Kirk about it. I have to go back to Media Day last year, in 2022, to even recall that. But yeah, it's an interesting question because if you go back to 2017 and 2018, they ran a lot of trick plays. I mean, I can think of probably a half dozen those 2 years. They had the polecat play against Ohio State in 2017. They had the fake field goal pass to Sam Brinks against Penn State in 2018. They had the long snap toss to TJ Hawkinson, who went end around against Minnesota in 2018. They had a fake pass to AJ Epinesa at Michigan State in 2017. Like, I can keep going. They ran so many weird plays on special teams that year, those 2 years, and then all of a sudden in 2019 it like stopped. And I don't know if that was a result more of they had a lot of confidence in Colton Rastetter being the guy back there, kind of facilitating that. Obviously, the answer I've gotten from coaches as to why Iowa stopped doing that has been, well, you can only do that when it's there. And so when you show that to teams, they're going to adjust and not give you the looks you want. But man, I would think, 5 years removed from doing those things, that you'd start to get some of those looks again. So we'll see. That's a great question. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be good to see? Because I think a lot of that was, I think LeVar Woods was behind most of that, would be my guess. I almost guarantee you LeVar Woods was behind those fake plays.
Well, I think this game's going to be won in the defense and the special teams. And honestly, I think Iowa's better at both of them. So I just hope for a Hawkeyes plot to win, I guess.
Would be great, and would make for a great post. Yeah, no, would be fabulous, and would make for a great post game show. And Michigan State week next week. So I'm with you.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go. Hope to tune in for a good show on Saturday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call. Yeah, good stuff. All good. Like I said, we've had great calls tonight, great questions, and Eric in the chat brings up Kamari Moulton. Let me find the original question here. Eric says, will Moulton have a surprise breakout game? Man, I don't know how many carries he's going to get. Now, if LaShawn Williams goes down, hope that doesn't happen. He's probably the next guy in. It seems like he's got maybe a notch above Terrell Washington Jr., which is interesting because Terrell enrolled early. Kamari did not, and they're different backs. But I doubt, I wouldn't count on him having a breakout game because I don't know he's going to get a ton of carries. But I'm sure he'll get some. I don't think you're going to see LaShawn carry the ball 35 times. Hopefully that's a problem we have, because that would indicate that Iowa has rushed the ball well enough to where they can continue to rush the ball and use some clock. Joe brings up a long shot getting Adrian Claiborne on the show sometime. I've never reached out to Adrian Claiborne. That would be a fun show. Probably won't happen this week, but boy, that would be fun. So appreciate the suggestion, Joe. And our call-in line, we've got one line open on the phone line. We've got a bunch of people here waiting to talk on StreamYard. We're here for at least the next half an hour to 40 minutes. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Right back here with more here at Hawkeye Hangout from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll be right back. To Iowa Floor Covering, a locally owned flooring store in Bondurant, Iowa that specializes in do-it-yourself projects. If you're a contractor or a DIYer, Iowa Floor Covering has your back. Right now at Iowa Floor Covering, get Tough Core click together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring for $269 per foot when you install it yourself. That's a much better value than you'll find at any of the big box stores. Looking for other types of flooring? They can help with that too. Between their exceptional product knowledge and commitment to customer service, the guys at Iowa Floor Covering will provide everything you need to complete your DIY flooring project. So what are you waiting for? Skip the box stores now and visit iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. That's iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. Promotional pricing only available with self-installation. All right, let's try that again. Yeah, Tony's waving his hands. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Let's try it again. I want to thank our sponsors because without them, it would not be possible. And if you've noticed, people or companies like Iowa Floor Covering and Under the Kitchen, they've been with us a long, long time. They've been loyal to the show. Please be loyal to them, folks. If you appreciate the content, please make sure to support them. All of their information is found in our descriptions. Be sure to let them know that we sent you. And as long as we continue to support our sponsors, we'll continue to pump out great content. Pretty much that simple. Let's go back to our call-in line, I believe. Yes, let's go back to our call-in line. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lomansky, Corey. Good evening, young squire.
Lomansky, how you doing, sir?
Good. Playing with my volume here.
You looked like you were going to call in on StreamYard. What happened?
Not technologically intelligent.
Well, you were on. I saw you in the queue.
I had my Swarm shirt on, and I have an iPad, and the Safari with iPads doesn't work very well for your callers. So I went through Chrome, and I'll have to go down and get smart, I guess.
You were on. We were just waiting to bring you on, Lomansky. You were all set up.
Well, I didn't like the feedback. I did this with Mark Rogers one time driving around, and he said it was fine, but on my end, the hearing's wacky. I'll get it straightened out before we win the Big Ten West.
Okay, deal. And thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Lomansky, as well. And Phil, we trust, send the blitz at the right time and knock something out of that QB. Thank you for that super chat, Lomansky. I do appreciate that.
Well, and Phil, I trust. And I watched the Illinois game against Penn State, and I think Bielema has got a real problem at quarterback. One of those interceptions, he threw it right to the freaking Penn State guy, and you had that great content with the Penn State podcaster that I really enjoyed him. Much better than the Cyclone Levi, who is a little bit distorted. He doesn't live in reality.
Leave little Levi alone. He's there. The Cyclones are 1-2. They're coming off a loss to Ohio on the road. Let's be nice to little brother.
Okay, but I got too many Iowa State fans that live in Las Vegas. They're very wealthy, and they terrorize me. So
I understand.
My vitriol comes out to any Cyclone, I guess.
I get it.
I'm not too impressed with Altmaier, Illinois, and I think that made Penn State look a little better, but they can recruit like the hell. I tell you, Franklin's becoming my number one clown of all the coaches in the Penn State. He had a 50-minute. Did you watch his presser about Iowa coming up?
It was 50 minutes? I did not see that.
Well, Kurt, he's pretty brief, and he's kind to everybody, and he's self-deprecating once in a while, which I like. I don't think he thinks that when he goes and practices and game plans, but Franklin's the smartest guy in the room. To one of his pressing guys, use an adjective. And, of course, Franklin didn't hear him. So the presser guy asks the question and explains the definition of this vocabulary word. Okay. And Franklin goes, I know what the word means. You don't have to do that to the public. Just get off your high horse and act like a human being. I really don't like him. And I do think they faked those injuries when Iowa played Penn State. And so I think what has to happen, I think Phil's been holding back. And I think what Phil's going to do, I think if Penn State scores 17 or more, we're beat. And I think Phil has been sitting back with his blitzes and to me, and I know what you think, but I don't care how good a young quarterback is. I think Phil's going to unleash the blitz in the first half to shut the crowd out, and hopefully we can knock that guy around, because the last time we beat Penn State, we knocked their quarterback out of the game, and I think we're going to get him a lot to think about.
Well, like I said, he's not as mobile as the past guys. And Darryl Clark was a pocket passer, but he could move as well. Yeah, it's kind of like Ohio State. They've went with Kyle McCord, who's a pocket guy, a 5-star pocket guy who's maybe not as mobile. I will say, you brought up Luke Altmaier, a great example of it doesn't always work going to the portal. Now, maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe Brett will figure it out. But Jeff Sims, another example. It doesn't always work in the portal. So far, it hasn't worked for either of those teams. And those are both, opponents of Iowa's in the Western Division. So, fair assessment. And I've seen a lot of people in the chat bringing up how Iowa needs to get to the quarterback. I agree. I agree. Force that young man into some tough decisions in big moments that maybe he hasn't experienced yet. And if they can get that crowd to shut up, hope I didn't say that too violently. If they can get that crowd to shut up early on Saturday night, advantage Iowa.
Well, structure, I think isn't it 72,000 capacity?
Is it only 72?
I don't think it's 80.
Okay. Look this up here.
10,000 in Unhappy Valley on Saturday.
Yeah, Unhappy Valley. Capacity at had it, and then Google did that weird thing where it suggested something else. Capacity is 106,000, Lemansky.
And it's a lot smaller.
Say it again.
Compared to most of the state. Go ahead.
What'd you say? You cut out the beat. What'd you say?
Kinnick's a lot smaller. I mean, there's a lot of big venues in the Big Ten bigger than Kinnick, but Kinnick's got the right vibrations and raucous crowds. They do just fine.
Well, you're right, but I've never been to a whiteout at Penn State, but from what I've heard, it's all it's hyped up to be. From what I've heard.
So I think Phil Parker knows if we don't get to a fast start and if we get behind, the Iowa philosophy is don't make mistakes. Of course, we haven't had any penalties, but we haven't got turnovers. I think we're break even. Phil takes on the responsibility to win the game with his special teams, and we're better at the quarterback position. So I think Phil will be blitzing, and I think watch that in the first half, and if we can shake him up or get a turnover, that's what's going to win the game, and hopefully we don't turn the ball over. But I don't think this is going to be like a 2017, 17-14. This is going to be one of those wars.
It might even be less than that. It might even be less than 17-14. I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being like a 13-10 game. I hope not. But at the same time, that might favor Iowa.
You have great content with the other Iowa guy on the beat from, was it 2-4? That's not right. Rivals.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned how people were saying their viewpoints are different than your viewpoints, and you just keep giving your point of view and don't get a thicker skin and keep up what you're doing, because the higher you go on the mountaintop, the more bullets you take, and you're just not used to taking those bullets yet because you're getting more popular, so people like to shake the tree. Go back and Google Hayden's press conference when he got ornery with the Iowa press, and charmed him and then gave him hell because the Iowa press was shooting bullets at him, and he'd been there a long time. And if you watch that, he half chewed him out and half charmed him at the same time. And I don't think anything shakes Don up. He probably talks you off air about being thick-skinned, but you just keep giving your viewpoint. And I like when you say, I don't care. Well, I think you do care deep down, but don't, I take bullets in the chat once in a while being talk about Hayden Fry too much and going on and on and on, but I don't care either. I'm an alumnus. I watched a lot of football. 99% of what Don Patterson says, I go to bed going, I wish Don was the offensive coordinator at 70 years old. I like it when you said Don should be the offensive coordinator last year.
I said that?
There's some truth to that.
When did I said that?
Well, you said something to that effect. It might have been those exact words, but you said some of Don's philosophy, like threatening the entire field, that we don't do that. Some of the things that Don appreciates in offense, you followed up with, well, we don't do any of that. And we never did that last year. So,
well, that's very much true. But Brian, I can tell you, Brian, Kirk, and Don have very different philosophies on offense. Let's just say that. And Don, I think Don took his lumps. They weren't very good in 1997. They were really bad in 1998. That wasn't all, the offense, but they also had some explosive offenses, not just when he was coordinator, but when he was coaching other positions on offense.
I think you went to college, didn't you, Corey?
I did briefly. Yeah. I didn't go to a 4-year university, if that's what you're asking.
Well, what I'm asking is, didn't you ever have a professor in high school or college where you were just a little bit outspoken and took a stand against them?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I really got comfortable being outspoken in this setting until I started working radio, to be quite frank, if you want to know the absolute truth. I've probably been outspoken a few too many times in my life, but I would say it probably radio got me more comfortable with that. You're
a married man, though, aren't you?
I am, as far as I'm still aware.
Spoken to get married, you got to be aggressive, or you don't stand a chance of holding your own. They're smarter than us.
Yeah, getting aggressive is always the key to a happy marriage.
But they're smarter than us, so you can't just let them run over you either. But my point is, Cade McNamara has been shunned by Michigan. Cade McNamara has trying to get the NFL. Cade McNamara is he's throwing those 50-50 balls. I don't think he cares what the hell the coaches say to him. He knows enough about football that if we don't at least attempt to throw down the field, they'll stack the box. And he knows what Iowa went through last year. We don't have a chance. Cade's going to be a rebel. He's going to be James Dean. That's an old guy, but he's going to be
no. Listen, he's not going to be James Dean. He's going to be James Bond. He's going to be wooing.
There you go.
He's going to be wooing and eyeing everybody in this country on Saturday.
Get some prime sunglasses and wear those when he plays quarterback. And if Brian says call this play and he has to check it to a long pass, I love these 50-50 balls. You said it on your podcast. Threw on the end zone is picked off, and I don't care because it's a 50-50 ball. You know what? Amen, brother. You got it. You can't just sit there and score 7 points and have special teams and defense win. I think Iowa's got a really good chance because I think the defense is going to do some things we haven't seen to this point, and I'm crossing my fingers, and we got a shot. And I think Penn State's as good as they've ever been. But I just think we've got a genius in Phil Parker.
Oh, he's something else, and his D is going to be tested, and Cooper DeJean has an opportunity to make his name known nationally on Saturday as well. Wouldn't that be something to get Cooper to have a huge game? Probably help our sponsors for our post-game show, RTI Threads, that carries Cooper's merchandise, to have him go off on CBS on Saturday night. But I agree with everything you just said, Lemansky.
Don's been in Iowa City a long time. I think you should go look at a taco company that's maybe not a chain, and you should have them sponsor the little man that isn't on your screen tonight. That little man is missing. You're not giving him his due. He is green. And then you and Don can have something down at the taco place and You got to work on, have Don work on sponsorship of something inside Iowa City and put them on the, promote the Little Green Man.
What are you talking about? Taco place? What are you talking about?
Well, the McCaffrey brothers, they got taco or whatever they call it, like a couple of years ago when Connor was running. They had their things down at a taco place, I think, in Iowa City. But there's a lot of family chains. You might be able to get a promotion here.
We are in talks. It's not with a taco company, but we are in talks. Listen,
those brothers had something sponsored. They did it out of a taco place in Iowa City, Connor and
that taco place. They're putting a lot of money in that podcast. But anyways, if anybody wants to sponsor anything, including the little man that Lemansky refers to, write down the email address on the bottom ticker. It's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. From the eye of the storm at outlook.com. You're right. And I've had some pushback on, why are you playing up this Brian 25 points per game thing? Because I'll do what I want on my show. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying I will put it out there. My goal is not to, I'm not going to do anything on this show with a goal to a certain agenda or to please the homers of the world. I kind of try to do things above board and have a little fun, but also, Iowa gave us to this. They're the ones that made this public. They put it out there for whatever reason you want to claim they put it out there for. It's out there, and I'm going to have some fun with it. So anyways.
Anyone that criticizes that does not have a good sense of humor. And if you don't have a good sense of humor, life's pretty rough. And I'll end it with that and have you get on your way with your podcast. I just love it because I think it's so ridiculous. It's the ideal thing to make fun of and use as humor or sarcasm. I bet you Mark Rogers thinks it's hilarious.
I appreciate the call, Lemansky, as always. Don't be a stranger to StreamYard. We need to see you sometime.
Well, I'll get that figured out before I die. Have a good show. Thanks so much.
Lemansky. Appreciate it. Okay. So Tony answered our question for our person in our chat. The question from Harpo. Do you ever travel to the away games? Are we talking football, I'm assuming? This is a football show, I guess, today. Yeah, I traveled to Purdue last year. I did go to the Iowa State game this year. So that's not really traveling, but I did go. We're going to put our next caller on hold, by the way. I did go to that game, and I went to Purdue last year. Don't have plans to go to another road game this year, although that can change. I've been to several bowl games. I don't, or I shouldn't say several. How many bowl games have I been to? One or two? Yeah, one or two, man. I don't know why did my mind go to several. Anyways, and we try to make my family we try to make road basketball games a regular part of the schedule. I enjoy that. So yeah, what's the road schedule the rest of the way? They get Nebraska on the road. They get Minnesota's home, Illinois is home, Purdue is home, Michigan State's home. So Penn State and Rutgers on the road? No, they get Rutgers at home. I have to look up the schedule. Who am I missing there? Anyways, I love going to road games. I love that environment. I had a lot more fun at the Cyhawk game this year in Ames than I did at the Utah State game in Iowa City. And maybe that's just because it was a rivalry and, I could run back to my car and get home in a few minutes. That's part of it, but that was fun. So back to Erica in the super chat here. Appreciate this, Erica, and I always appreciate seeing you here. And Phil, we trust we will get sacks. Joe Evans will get it done. Erica is a big Joe Evans fan, as am I. Great story. Ames native, and would be great to get home a couple of times. He's just become a really good football player. I mean, it's just, he's a typical Kirk product. And remember, he came back for an extra year. He could have left after this past year, but NIL kept him around, and good for him to maybe able to make some money, because I don't know that he's got a future at the NFL level. He's not real big, but it will be nice to see. Hopefully, he'll make a big play or two. Let's not forget, he made maybe the play of the season last year against Ohio State on the road. Remember the strip sack, scoop, and score against the Buckeyes? Incredible play by Joe Evans. So would be great to see Joe have a breakout game again on Saturday. David says, how bad will Cade have to be before Kirk goes to Hill? Corey, how about it? How bad will he have to be for him to go to Deacon Hill? He would have to be really, 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 really bad. Okay. Or he's going to be just in a bad injury situation, because there's no comparison. I hope everybody realizes that just because Deacon Hill had a few nice throws Saturday late against a bad Western Michigan team, there's no comparison to where the coaching staff sees Cade and where they see Deacon Hill. If Iowa now Deacon Hill, I have no doubt he's got the potential to be better than any of Iowa's backups over the last couple of seasons. But if Iowa was never willing to make a change at quarterback when Spencer Petras was throwing the ball around the yard, I ain't gonna do it when Cade goes through some struggles. He is the guy, and unless he is just incredibly injured more than he is now, he's going to play, even if he's struggling. And Kirk is not one to pull quarterbacks anyways. Go back to 2009 in the 5 interception performance against Indiana at home. Now Iowa found a way to win that game. Ricky Stanzi came back and threw a touchdown to DJK, threw a touchdown to Marvin McNutt. But nevertheless, Kirk is just not quick to change QBs. Didn't change the QB once in 2012. They went 4-8, and James Vandenberg struggled all year. Heelan Crusaders radio show says, if Iowa wins this game, can they make the college football playoff? Well, believe you me, they're going to be in the discussion if they win this game, right? They're going to beat a top 10 team on the road, and maybe that won't happen. I'm not predicting it will happen. But they should be in the conversation. You're 4-0 with one of the best wins, I shouldn't say maybe the best win in the country. I'd have to match it up with like Florida State's win over LSU and go down the list. Like, this is going to be one of the best wins in all of college football so far this year if they win. Texas won out Alabama. That's probably win number 1, right? Best win of the season so far in college football. That'd be a good question for Mark Rogers. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be in the conversation, but obviously one thing at a time. They need to go there and win. That's a huge, huge task. Ari Gold says, where do Penn State fans rank in the Big Ten if Nebraska fans are the worst? Where is PSU? I hate to do that. Rate fan bases. I know, really, I had a roommate that was a Nebraska fan, and I consider him a good friend to this day. I hate to put everybody in a box. I had some really unfortunate interactions with Penn State fans 2 years ago. I'll just say that. So I don't want to rank anybody, but I've had some unfortunate interactions with Penn State fans and some unfortunate interactions with Michigan fans. But I've also got, there's fans from each platform or each fan base that I really do appreciate and that follow the channel. Erica, thank you for this super chat as well. If Cade doesn't perform, will we see Deacon out there? Again, I think it would take a lot. I don't know how many picks it would take. But if he's struggling, if he's throwing interceptions and struggling because of being injured, that would obviously potentially prompt a change. And let's not forget 2016, the Outback Bowl in 2016, Iowa and Florida. I guess it was technically the first game of 2017, but it was the 2016 season when CJ Beathard was kept in the game against Florida, and he was just getting hammered, and they never went to the backup in that game. So Kirk doesn't like to do that. I would doubt we see that on Saturday. Josh, thank you for the compliment. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for starting to listen to the show last year. T. Hank says, honestly, enjoyed doing the bowl picks last year with you. It was actually really entertaining. Never really got into bowl season until I filled out bowl picks, and we're going to do that again this year. I have a lot of fun doing Bowl Mania, and we'll have a group for our from the Hawkeye of the Storm listeners. Brian, are they predicting bad weather for the game? Sounds like a 40 to 50% chance of rain, 50 to 60 degrees. Typical weather for an Iowa Penn State game in Happy Valley. D. Chown, thank you for the compliment. Keep up the great work. Thank you, and please continue to watch the show, D. And Destiny Pirate, Ben Keeter, does anyone know how he's progressing? He's the only top pound-for-pound 2023 wrestler in the entire nation, 6'3", 220, 4'6", natural athlete. Last I knew, I know somebody made the comment that they saw him in the corridor or in the hallway at Kinnick during game 1, which would mean he didn't dress. Probably is an indicator that he's dealing with an injury. I know Don Patterson made that comment that prior to the week 1 game that he did see Ben at a practice, But I don't know. I don't know. He's not been on the injury report. I can tell you that. But I don't know how specific Iowa needs to be with injury reports if they're not dressing kids. So, especially true freshmen. I just don't know with the new Big Ten rule. All right. Let's go back to our phone line. Ryan, welcome.
Mr. Brada, how are you
How you
tonight?
doing, buddy boy?
I'm good, man. Sorry to say this to you, man, but I got a major bone to pick with you. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So, as I've alluded to before, I am from Dubuque, Iowa, and you said something greatly offensive
Oh, here we go.
when you had Coach Patterson on, and it's about Ontario Thompson.
Yeah, I know. I said Waller, and I
Yes, he's Hempstead.
I know.
Man,
I know.
I was born in 1975, and linebacker Tom Rusk came to Iowa in 1975 from Hempstead, and I don't think we've had a single Hawkeye until Thompson. So please, please, don't do that again to me. I'm a proud Hempstead Mustang, man.
I'm sorry. I apologize to all the Dubuque Wallert alums. I didn't realize there was such a passion and the vitriol between those two programs.
No, not really, but I don't know. Maybe I've been so far removed, but it's just Hempstead's one of the bigger schools in the state, and it's kind of crazy that we just don't have a lot of D1 athletes, let alone Iowa. And so finally we got one.
He's a freak, Ryan.
I know. It's so
he's a freak.
It's so fun for me to watch. And when I heard Waller, my heart just dropped. So anyway,
hold on a second. Let's acknowledge the comment in the chat here from Mike. Nebraska stinks? ? Who holding the trophy from last year? I believe Nebraska is ahead of Iowa now in total defense in this week. Plus, played a ranked team and good team.
Can I answer
Careful
that?
what you say.
Can
Be
I answer
careful
that?
what you say, Ryan.
My boss is a diehard Nebraska fan, and he is the first guy in the world to come and say to me, if Cooper DeJean doesn't go out 2 minutes into the game, they have no chance. They put TJ Hill in, and they rightfully picked on TJ Hill. They got their 3 touchdowns. That's why they won, because Iowa did not have enough depth behind Cooper DeJean. Good luck this year. I mean, it doesn't mean anything has changed, and Nebraska still Nebraska's. You know, you're gonna be competitive for 3 quarters and then shoot yourself in the foot, and that's what they've become, and it's up to them to change it.
Can I just address something else in the chat while you're on here?
Sure.
Before I forget. So Doug brings this. I love how Doug brings this up twice, and Doug, I appreciate you being here all the time. I'm gonna address this one final time. I addressed it earlier today. I never stated that I had an issue with Iowa scoring that late touchdown by Max White. Never said that. I brought it up because it's relevant.
I agree.
Iowa does not have a history under Kirk Ferentz of going for a score in that position. When they have had, and this is under Coach Fry or Coach Ferentz, when they have had an opportunity to take a knee to end the game, they have done that. And I don't want to hear this crap, and that's what it is. It's crap about how that was all designed for Max White to score a touchdown. If it was all for Max White to score a touchdown, and I'm happy for that young man because I guarantee he busts his butt every day in practice, and good for him for having that moment. I'm thrilled to death for him. But for the people that say that was the reason because they wanted to give Max White a touchdown, why'd they throw on 3rd and goal from the 2, Ryan? Why did they throw?
We know the answer.
3rd and goal.
We know the answer. And the second.
Well, I just want to make that clear. They threw on 3rd and goal.
Right.
So don't
and
tell me
you can always say, well, we wanted to see how Deacon Hill would react in the goal line. But the answer is, you know, when you had CJ Beathard backing up Rudock and you had Nate Stanley backing up Beathard, and they were in similar positions, it was a knee every time. I mean, maybe if you're on the 20-yard line, a 5-yard rollout pass in garbage time, followed by a couple handoffs to finally take the knee. Of course. And the second the illustrious AD known as Gary Barta put that contract out there, you knew this was going to happen. And Kirk,
I'm not even saying that was the reason. I just want to make people clear of the reason why it's relevant, because they broke tendency. Yes, no one's complaining about them breaking tendency. We're simply stating the fact that they broke tendency the same season in which they finally have this unbelievably awkward points per game metric for their OC that determines whether or not he continues coaching at Iowa. That's what makes it unique. They broke tendency and changed how they normally do things in a late game situation with this hovering above them. So yes, it is a talking point. And
he's gonna coach at Iowa. He will be our coach, offensive coordinator next year, whether we average another 17.7 a game or you name it.
Right.
You know why? Because the boss says so. And if you don't think Kirk Ferentz is the boss, he's the Capone, he's the man who runs the show, he's the Gambino. It's Kirk will, or Kirk walks with us, and then we have a situation where we gotta figure things out, But Kirk,
regardless of that,
Kirk and Brian are going to be together for the rest of Kirk's tenure here, unless for some reason Brian gets some great NFL opportunity that Kirk, orchestrates. But anyway,
hold on real quick. Regardless of all that, Ryan, a couple things I've said all along. I think the 25 point per game thing is unfair to Brian.
Agree.
I think it's unfair to the players, and it has nothing to do with my feelings on Brian. It's more so how dysfunctional the situation is, and I have no issue at all with running the score up. Now, I believe in sportsmanship, whatever that looks like, right? And in the past, Iowa has handled those situations a certain way. They did not handle them that way on Saturday. That is a fact. You can go back and look at situation after situation after situation where Iowa has taken a knee in those situations. They snapped the ball twice with under 40 seconds on Saturday in the fourth quarter. That's a fact. So you can argue all you want. You don't like it, that's fine.
If you remember, I don't know, 5 years, 6, 7 years back, they talked about Kirk 2.0, the riverboat gambler, who started going for it on fourth down a lot. And he was actually pretty successful. And people thought, oh, maybe there's a little philosophy change here with Kirk. And I think what you have here is he's got 1 year of being a little bit of a maverick because he has no choice to be, hence going for a touchdown when he easily could have taken a knee. Western Michigan is your opportunity to rack some points up. I mean, come on, you're going to play at Happy Valley next week. I mean, especially now that you hear the weather reports, which I think we'll get into, but it's like you'd be happy to come out of there with 17 points and hold them to 16, right? I mean, 25 points, especially if the weather is as bad as it might be. Not that they knew what the weather was going to look like last week, but that being said, good weather or not, you're not scoring a ton against Penn State. You don't score a ton against Ohio State. There's a few schools that you got to win down and dirty, a la 2016 Michigan game, 14-13. I thought it was kind of predictable. I mean, they were the sacrificial lamb, and he had to get as much as he could. And now we're at 28.3 right now, and it's going to go down next week. I mean, and I have no problem with that. But
I hope it doesn't. Because I hope Iowa scores 50 on them.
Well, that ain't happening. I mean, come on.
I'm just saying, I want to make everybody clear.
Tell you what, I'll buy some more Iowa Smokehouse if they score 50 on them. Does that sound good?
How much are you ordering of Iowa Smokehouse if they put up 50?
I will double every point they score, but I have to get at least $50 of an order.
Okay.
So sounds 25, good. If that's the benchmark, you got your 50 right there. I mean, making me order Iowa Smokehouse is not exactly like, painful for
Punishment.
me. No. You know what though? I bought like a massive order right before the Utah State game. I'm down to the last 2 beef sticks.
Keep flashing those beef sticks on camera.
And I hid it from my kids. So anyway. Couple of things. The comment was made earlier about Coach Patterson being offensive coordinator. And I do remember last year making the comment right to Coach. I said, I want Iowa to back up a Brinks truck into your driveway and give you the offer for offensive coordinator unless you're happy in retirement. And he said, I'm happy in retirement. And then he stopped and he said, but if they did, back up a Brinks truck, I would definitely talk to them.
I don't remember that, but
I do.
I do like that. And for the record, Don is not. He, as you know, he's not pandering to.
No, I know, but I mean, you remember him as offensive coordinator, don't you?
No,
you don't. I do. You don't.
Well, given the fact that I was like 4-3 during his last year,
98 was his last year. So
I know 3. I was 3.
Oh, you're that old?
Yeah, I'm that old. Yes, I am that old.
I thought you were like 48. Sorry. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
no,
Just kidding. Just kidding. I know. I like teasing you. So in 1998, I guess you don't remember the game, but you might be familiar with it. In 1998 was my senior year at Iowa. And this quarterback for Michigan came to Iowa City in a monsoon. It was just maybe the worst weather I ever saw at Kinnick that had nothing to do with snow. It was just a raining monsoon. And that was Michigan, Tom Brady. Tom Brady threw for 159 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. We lost 12-9 in just a mud slobber fest. And I hear the weather is going to be just awful at Penn State on Saturday. There's a real good chance for some treacherous rain. That could, ACLs, be blessed, but that could really be an advantage for Iowa, where, if you think about it, unfortunately, whether we have perfect weather or terrible weather, we're not going to be great in the passing game. We just never seem to be. Our best chance is number one, running the ball, but the most important factor in everything is run blocking. And yeah, we looked at much better, obviously. The stats bear it out against a Western Michigan, but Penn State, it goes without saying, is a completely different animal. How do you see this game possibly shaping out? Let's assume Iowa is at least a notch or two better at run blocking. How I see that, honestly, that and maybe some real design stuff for Eric Gall, because obviously there's a connection there. But, we're down a lot. I'd also love to see Caleb Brown in more of an Smith Marset type role, doing some of those flea flicker type runs, because he's an athlete. And, we got to get him the ball. I mean, he's a Penn State level athlete for sure. He went to Ohio State, for God's sakes. We got to use our athletes too. And there's just too much, dinking and dunking with, no offense to the Reganies of the world. I love him, but, he's a good player. But like these little 5-yard passes aren't going to get it done. We got to let our athletes go toe to toe.
Well, I'll say this. I'd like to see Caleb Brown get the ball more. I'm with you on that. However, I'd also like to see them take some shots his way. And they've tried a couple of times. I think they're better at whiteout than they were last year.
Definitely.
Now, let me quantify what I'm just saying. Most people are going to say, well, obviously, Corey, they were down to a bunch of walk-ons. I'm saying if everybody was healthy last year, I still think they are better this year. In other words, Ragaini, Arlen Bruce, Keegan Johnson. This might be I don't know if some people are upset about the whole betting situation with Arlen, and people don't understand the situation with Keegan and his injury. But at the same time, like, I bring that up because I think I would probably take Caleb Brown, Seth Anderson, Ragaini, and Deontay Vines, their upside, over those other guys. I like their attitude more than those
I do
other
too.
guys. Not nothing against Key. I never had any real interactions with Keegan Johnson himself. But obviously the betting stuff doesn't rub you the right way when you hear that Arlen was involved with some of this stuff while he was a wideout at Iowa. I had heard, well, I won't go down that road. I like Seth Anderson a lot.
Oh, say it, Corey. Just say it.
No. I like Seth Anderson a lot, Ryan. I like Seth Anderson a lot. Great kid. Deontay Vines, good kid. And Caleb Brown, good kid. And you're right. Athletically, Caleb is as good as they get. I mean, for an Iowa receiver, but they got to get him the ball more. I'd like to see them.
And he's at the Penn State recruit level. You know what I mean? It's like I'm pretty sure he would play if he went to Penn State. And when you get an athlete of that caliber, it feels like I don't know if this is completely fair to say, but it feels like, yeah, we celebrate, hey, we got one of the higher rated recruits that we ever got. We got him in the fold. And then you don't maximize them. And you can't tell me an athlete like that can't contribute as a freshman, sophomore, early on. You know, I mean, the dude's an athlete, and it's okay to be an athlete at Iowa. Tim DeWitt did a great job of it, you know. DJ K did a great job of it. Cooper's doing a great job of it.
Charlie Jones.
He had a touchdown for the Bengals, you know.
How about that?
I was happy like he was a Hawkeye.
I'm happy for Charlie Jones.
Absolutely, and I can't blame him. I think it's an indictment on our scheme, our philosophy, and that kind of thing, which all plays into why I'm calling for guys like Caleb to be a bigger part of our overall offense. You're down Luke Lachey, so you lose a major security blanket there. You got to find other security blankets. Maybe it's the flea flicker. Maybe it's, the go out for a 7-yard pass and see how many yards after catch you get using your legs and your shiftiness. I mean, we gotta do other things, and it's like, why the few times we did throw downfield and it didn't work, I was not a bit upset.
Yeah.
You got to take those chances, and eventually it's going to hit.
They've been better in pass pro up until last week. They weren't great against Western Michigan. Western Michigan sends a lot of pressure at the quarterback. And Cade took some hits, which is, again, part of the reason I didn't like the fact that he even played in that game. I would have much rather I would have rather seen quarterback by committee in one game. And I know that's very unlike Iowa, but shut Cade down for 8 days. Well, they didn't do that. And that's their choice. Big sigh in and out, because I have a feeling he's going to be hampered all year. And I hope that's not the case. But
I know. I just thought, I heard you make the comment as well that between Hill and Labus, we would have been fine winning the game.
Well, would they not have? How would they not have?
Of course they would have.
They would have been fine.
They would have been fine. They would have. They
ran the ball down Western Michigan's throat, and K did not play well, and they won by 31.
But then,
they won by 31.
I know we talked about this before, but one of the, and I love Kirk, yada yada, but like one criticism I majorly had, if you remember the bowl game in 2016 against Florida, we lost 33-3. And Beathard got the holy hell kicked out of him in that game. He was limping. He was clearly hurt. Ed Cunningham, who was doing commentary, more or less implied child abuse at this point. Like if I was his father, I would be furious. You can't keep putting this kid in there. He's so hurt. Meanwhile, you got healthy, true freshman Nathan Stanley on the sidelines. It's already a 33-3 game. We're done. Or, I mean, we were blown out to pieces by then. Why not just put in the other guy and preserve? I know it was the last game of the year at the time, but the point being, Kirk just doesn't pull quarterbacks very easily. I know there's been in 25 years a couple examples where, like Christensen became Stanzi, but very, very, very few. And once he picks a quarterback, he doubles and triples down. So
and Christensen was throwing dirt balls.
Oh, you're right.
Throwing dirt balls back in 2008.
My biggest concern about Saturday is I'm thinking it's going to be a very low scoring game. I think it's going to be competitive. Will we win? I almost wonder if it comes down to the fact that if you notice, Iowa's defense, for as wonderful and great as it is not very good on the opening drive and not even great on the second drive. We give up a good number of the total points given up is on that first or second drive. So let's say it's 7-0 or 10-0 early Penn State. Do we have what it takes to overcome that?
No. They're not overcoming a 17-0 lead. Is that what you're asking?
Well, 10 to
They're not
nothing.
Overcoming a 17-0 lead on the road.
I said 10-0 early on. I mean, I'm sure we were good for a field goal or maybe a special teams play. I don't know, but that's my biggest concern is we do tend to, our defense, for as wonderful as it has been, tends to start very slow. And, every week it kind of bears that out. Against Iowa State, we got a little lucky stopping them, but they drive on us. And that's a big concern of mine because you can't get into a big deficit with these guys. You got to keep the whole game a one-score game if you're behind, or else, I don't know, because then you're going to ask Brian and Kirk to throw downfield, and they would rather have a root canal.
They would rather. Okay. Yeah, you're upset. Why are you so obsessed with dentistry? You're obsessed with. You bring up the dentistry with Gary Barta. You bring up the dentistry with.
What are you talking about, Gary Barta?
You're always bringing up dentistry.
Well, for what it's worth, Beth gets no problem with her dentistry whatsoever.
Okay.
Now, Gary Barta, while you still had those benefits, you should. Well, he probably still does. Yes, maybe make an appointment. But anyway. I'm going to miss Gary Barta about as much as I'm going to miss, I don't know, an ex-girlfriend. But
is that okay? I won't go that one.
Better days ahead, brother.
Okay. Ryan, I appreciate your call as always, sir.
Hey, have a good one. Do you have a prediction, or are you going to save it?
I'm going to save it for Friday morning. I'll release it Friday morning. I'll have a bunch of content tomorrow.
17-16 Hawkeyes.
Sounds good, sir.
Thanks,
Ryan. Oh, our caller on hold just hung up. He was on hold for a long, long time, and he just hung up as I was about to answer the call. If you're our caller who was on hold for like 40 minutes, call back because you were literally next on the list. Let's go to our next caller who's been on hold for like 30 minutes. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Howard. Oh my goodness, this is the cue, folks. This is when the cue to getting Hawkeye Howard was the one who was on hold for so long. Let's get to our next caller. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? Okay, I don't know what that was. Let's go to our next caller. Is this Hawkeye Howard?
Yes, it is.
What? How did I know it was you?
My phone number, probably.
I guess it popped up Hawkeye Howard on my my ID here.
Yeah, well, I used to call a lot, but
Yeah, I guess
it's been a
so.
while.
Yeah, it has been a while. Good to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, it is. I thought I'd call in. Hawkeye Howard is back.
Hawkeye
I
Howard
am
is
about
back.
Yes, I am 90% getting healthy, and I'm ready for the season. You know me, I'm psyched, and I have to clarify something. I'm not a fool. At least I don't feel so bad. Pat McAfee got fooled by the video too. So
Was he actually being? I didn't watch I don't watch Pat McAfee, but was he actually being serious about the Brian Ferentz video?
yes, he was. He thought it was real, because the whole thing is, I could see that. Like I told you, it's like I could see that coming from Brian.
If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, I'll let everybody else figure it out. It's on social media. So.
Yeah. It's a look on X, and you'll see it. It's funny. It really is funny. So, but the Penn State game, I pray that Iowa wins. I really do. But yet, boy, I tell you, I kind of look back over my shoulder and like, yeah, I hope we play and not get blown out. So
I mean, I hope that as well. It's not like they haven't been blown out on the road at Penn State before. Again, 2016 is an example, but I wouldn't count on that happening. I think they keep this thing close.
Yeah, I really do. And the third thing, Corey, why are you picking on my man Deacon Hill? He is, when he comes in, I stand up and applaud. He's the big guy we're living through. Us big guys. I'm 6'4", same size as him. I'd be glad to be a quarterback, but no, I have to be the defensive guy. So
you're telling me that. So okay, first of all, I don't know when I picked. I'm not picking on Deacon Hill, but
I'm just messing with you, Corey.
I got to ask this question, Hawkeye Howard. I got to ask this question. Are you an advocate for having a 260-pound, 6'3", 260-pound quarterback running the Iowa offense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, I am. I mean, I'm going to show my age.
Well, it sounds like
when the fridge. I remember when the fridge was in the backfield. Put the ball in his hand and let him go.
Yeah, it sounds like Kirk Ferentz and Brian agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same size as him. I mean, I don't have the arm strength or the youngness that he has, but I would have been. I probably wouldn't have come to throw the football 15 feet, but still would have been fun. So, but I really like Deacon Hill. He did pretty good with that third down. He passed the ball with a bullet.
Yeah, he's got a good arm.
Yes,
he's got a good arm.
So, and
I don't know who's more mobile, 260-pound Deacon Hill or 209-pound injured quadless Cade McNamara.
I take Deacon Hill. He can just plow him over.
Okay.
Cade has to go around him.
I have yet to see him do that, but hopefully you're right.
Well, we might see it throughout the year. You never know.
Okay.
But my prediction earlier this year, 12-0, was hanging on the balance. So far, we're 3 in.
You predicted it 2 years ago, and you predicted it this year. I appreciate you, Hawkeye Howard. You're a loyal fan.
Has it been 2 years already?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. You predicted that, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. That's when I was driving truck. So,
yeah, you were driving truck. I remember those calls.
Yeah. So, well, all right. Well, I won't be blabbing too long. I just wanted to call in and tell you I'm back. I'll be calling in every now and then. Hopefully a win after Sunday night or Saturday night into Sunday, probably, if we win.
Yeah.
You've had those shows. So
yes, we have. I can assure you that whether we win or whether Iowa wins or doesn't win, my guess is that we'll be on early into Sunday
for a while.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but that's about it. Well, one more thing. They said everybody's clamoring about putting on points at the end. I don't care. The young man got to score some points. I've been in his shoes. When you get to be able to, when you're like down on the totem pole and lost in the, in the bunch of names, and you get to score a touchdown, good for him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy for Max White, and I hope that becomes a regular thing even after this season. Not necessarily scoring in the final seconds when you could take a knee, but not letting the foot off the gas and continuing to call plays to help your second and third stringers improve and have their moments. I'm all for that.
And always remember, Corey, there's no such thing as a wasted down.
That's right. No such thing as a waste down. Matt Rule agrees.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
All right. You have a good day.
You too, man. Appreciate Hawkeye Howard. Yeah, apparently Matt Rule made some comments about waste down. So maybe Brian actually got his philosophy from New England on waste downs. I'm serious, because Matt Rule, apparently, according to what Cole told me earlier, apparently Matt referred to New England and what he learned there. So whatever. Danimal, hey, Corey, I have possibly a hot take for you. I think our D-line is actually quite good. No, they don't get home a lot, but they plug up the line and shut down the opposing offensive fun game. I think he means run game. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, Danimal, and thank you for the super chat. It would be nice just, sacks are drive killers, right? So pressure is always good, but Don Patterson's talked about that. Sacks are drive killers. So if they can figure out a way to get home a couple of times and set Penn State well behind the chains, that would be big. But I do appreciate the super chat, Danimal, and I agree with you. I still think the D-line is the strength of this defense. Eric says, Corey, I think an interesting guest to have on would be Hawkeye Elvis. I've met him a couple times, and he seems like an interesting character. I actually did a show. Our friends over at Nebraska Hawks Nest, they had myself and Hawkeye Elvis and a couple other people on a couple of years back. So you could probably find that somewhere. But I have talked to him before, and I think he follows me on Twitter. I follow him, I believe. See Lightning have a bad feeling Cade doesn't stay in for the whole game. He'll get truly flushed out of the pocket, and that quad will not get him out of harm's way. Well, I hope you're wrong on that. Cole says, I sent you a video on Twitter on Rule's comments. Thank you, Cole. I'll be sure to check that out as soon as I'm off the air. Appreciate that super chat as well. Rappers and rabbis, being a caller on this show is on my bucket list. Well, you don't delay the inevitable. That's what I have to say on that. All right, we've got two more callers left, folks. Two more callers this evening. We've got Kyle and we've got Tony. And before we get to Kyle and Tony, I want to take a moment to plug our sponsor. Ascent Nutrition is another company that's been with us for a long, long time, and we certainly appreciate Ascent. And here is an example of what you get with Ascent Nutrition. Premium products, including their Ascent coffee. Now, of course, many coffees contain harmful molds and mycotoxins, and most people don't realize that. Read all about this premium organic coffee by visiting goascentnutrition.com. Here is the Ascent coffee page. But again, if you start your Ascent today with Go Ascent Nutrition, you can check out all their awesome products, including their recently released agarikon and lion's mane mushroom powders. All of these can be browsed and read about, researched right here through the website, goascentnutrition.com. Through traditional use as well as the science of today, agarikon has been used to support respiratory and lung health, as well as your immune system health, neurological health, and inflammatory response. Those are just some of the many benefits that some of these mushroom powders can provide. And of course, we all need help in all of those areas. And also, I mentioned the lion's mane mushroom. It's been shown to support brain health, memory, stress response, overall immune system health. And you can use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order. So you just add one of their great products to your cart, check out, and then enter that code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order. So enter Hawkeyes up here, and you'll get 15% off your order, courtesy, not Hawkettes, Hawkeyes, courtesy of Ascent Nutrition. Again, one more time, the website is goascentnutrition.com. And as you support our sponsors, including Ascent Nutrition, which is owned by a former Hawkeye, Lance Shuttler, you are supporting the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. All right, let's go to our final two callers of the night. Kyle. Kyle.
How you doing tonight, Corey?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. There's a golf course near us that accidentally left their floodlights on after sun went down, so got to have a little bit of a field day with that. It's always a little bit of fun.
You did what? Say that again.
There's a golf course near us that has floodlights, so if the carts are out late, they have floodlights to help the staff finish up. And the the owner, I watched the owner walk out the front door without turning the floodlights off. So the entire putting green and driving range area was all lit up until about 10 o'clock there.
Is that
happened
before?
It's happened once or twice before. I always like to kind of hang around that course if I'm there until dark just to see it, because the guy that runs it's a little bit older, so sometimes I think he blinks out on it.
So how many hours do you spend on average on the course a day?
I mean, in school it's a little bit different. In the summertime, when I was preparing for collegiate competition, I'd say probably 40 to 50 hours a week.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I joked with my boss at ThinkBind that I basically lived there, because I worked that year. I probably worked 20-ish, 25 hours a week there part-time. And then I was there 40 to 50 hours practicing. So my schedule that I alternated between was the first day I'd play 18, and then I'd hit 2 buckets of balls. And then the next day I'd play 36 and then play 18, or hit 1 bucket of balls. So that was like that was when I was like at the height of my obsession.
Well, you're entering a dark time, so enjoy the course while you have it. We get some warm weather this week, but as you know, being an Iowa guy, we don't know when this is all going to switch. So I need to get back on the course myself. I had an invitation to get out on Friday, and I had to pass on it. And I was out fishing the last few days. I went up to Okoboji for a couple of days, and there's just something about those two things, those two activities, fishing and golf. Like there's just nothing like those two things for me. I know you've approached golf from a competitive standpoint, because you're obviously a lot more talented than I am as it relates to the game. But something about being able to relax out in nature is something special. So I'm going to try to enjoy this the green and the outdoors before it gets nasty, cold, and white again.
Yeah, no, I between daylight savings is I say half jokingly that I have seasonal depression every year, and it's only half of a joke, because once the sun starts going down at 5, I just, there's something about life that's just not as much fun anymore.
And ironically enough, Kyle, you see the water glass I'm using here? It's a 19th hole golf glass. So, nothing alcoholic in it, but it is a 19th hole golf glass.
Yeah, well, these are good distractions, right? Good distractions.
Absolutely. So what do you think about Saturday? How are you feeling?
I'm not going to lie. I don't see Penn State covering the spread. I don't think a game that Iowa loses by more than 14 points happens more than once every year, once every other year. So like you, I'm not a betting man, but I would not be betting on Penn State to cover that spread. However, I don't like Iowa's chances for a number of reasons. I think they've got the only chance that I see them having in this game is if one of two things happens. Number one, a defensive or special teams touchdown,
which has happened a lot in this series.
Which has, yep. That or the defense or special teams creates 2 short fields, because I don't trust them to necessarily take advantage of if they get one of them. I think they've either got to score or they've got to create 2 really short fields. I thought the Illinois game with Penn State was essentially a throwaway game. Luke Altmaier was terrible.
He was,
and I mean terrible. I was really disappointed, because one of my old college roommates is a big Illinois fan, so he was very excited when they got Luke Altmaier, considering where he comes from, in terms of Ole Miss and getting a transfer quarterback and all that kind of stuff. But he was terrible. And with 5 turnovers in the game, I just don't. I mean, that's such an anomaly, and it'd be so unlike Iowa to allow that to happen to them. Not to say that it's not possible, but it'd be so unlike Iowa for that to happen that I didn't read a whole lot into it. But The only thing that really popped off the screen to me, and I mentioned this in the last broadcast or in your last show, was the speed on that Penn State defense and the athleticism terrifies me. I am going to be very, very surprised if Cade makes it out of that game without one or two hits that make us all cringe. I think there's a good chance that he does not survive this game.
Well, that's a problem if that happens. That's a problem.
It's a big problem.
They've got to have someone. That's the thing. I think what people don't understand about the quarterback position at Iowa is they absolutely need somebody that can lead them and take care of the ball. And like it's easy to say. And actually, that's why Iowa won so many games with Spencer Petras. As bad as he was with simple things like making a simple completion on a 10-yard out route, like he for the most part avoided interceptions. Like if he was an interception machine, Iowa was not winning 10 games in 2021. They were not going to be. They wouldn't have won 6 games in 2020, and they wouldn't even won 8 games last year. So you give Spencer Petras credit for one thing at the minimum. For the most part, he took care of the ball as bad as he was in other areas. Now you're not going to be great if you've got quarterback play that's to that level, but I think for Cade, the difference is he can make the occasional play down the field. It's kind of like a Ricky Stanzi or certainly a CJ Beathard, and at times Jake Rudock, certainly Drew Tate. Guys who have the potential, Nate Stanley, guys who have the potential to make a play or two at big moments in the game. That's all you need out of an Iowa quarterback. And on the road, your defense is going to give you a chance as long as you take care of the ball. I go back to 2021. Iowa beat Penn State. That was a top 5 ranked Penn State team in Kinnick. Why? Because they hit one big play down the field to Nico Ragaini. And so that's what they need out of Cade. I hope you're wrong about the injury situation because I agree with you. He's looked really, really hampered, and you just hold your breath.
Even the one scramble that kind of gave some people hope. I mean, the way he pulled up towards the end of that run when he was running out on the right sideline.
That made me wince as much as it made him wince. That was ugly.
You could tell I think whether or not he gets physically over his injury, I don't think he'll mentally get over it the entire rest of the season. I doubt physically he will either, but the mental burden, I say this coming from somebody that is nowhere near Cade McNamara's athletic ability. But I mean, I had a severe back injury my freshman year of college, and like the time that it took to get back and the time that it took for me to really trust it were two completely different things. And I don't see him trusting that knee given the quad and what happened to his knee before as a Hawkeye even. I mean, this is something that could haunt him the rest of his career.
By the way, just so this is an indication of how long we've been on the air. I just looked at the forecast again for State College, and the Weather Channel has updated this now to Saturday during the day, cloudy with occasional showers, chance of rain 40%. Saturday night, they have now upped that to 50%. From it was 40% earlier, now it's 50%. And it says considerable cloudiness with occasional rain showers.
Curious, are you rooting for that 50% number to go up or down?
I'm rooting for that 50% number to become 90%.
I would agree with you. I don't think it'll make for a great viewing pleasure, but
I'm rooting for a monsoon and 8 lightning delays. I want to be doing this I want to be doing a post-game show at 7 a.m. That's what I want.
Oh my goodness, that would be a sight to behold. I wonder if the super chat rate goes down after 3:00 in the morning.
Can you imagine how many live streams I would have done if we have like 7 lightning delays?
You'd have been on the air longer than the game was on.
Yeah, exactly. Can I just say one thing, Kyle, real quick? The halftime on Saturday, I went out to the car and did that little live stream. I was I'm extremely grateful for people that watch that kind of thing, but like I think halftime show it produced like 300 people that watched it live in total. But then I went back and looked at the numbers, and the halftime show produced almost 2,000 views. Like, who's watching a halftime show during or after the game? Like, that's the problem with
That's a good point.
With streams like that. Like, there's no shelf life, and yet, how does it get to 2,000 views? I appreciate.
Well, I think it was short. That was the first thing, because like the longer ones are a little bit harder after the fact to like sit down and watch the whole way through. But besides that, I mean, and certainly it was, you know, lower production than the rest of your
right
live streams, right, in comparison. So I don't know. Maybe people are just upset. I don't know. The Luke Lachey injury did things to people.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Erica with the super chat. Thank you, Erica. Gotta love how we live rent free in PSU's fans' heads because we called them out in their injuries, quote unquote, last time we played. Even the TV announcers who were almost never pro Iowa were calling them out for it. Erica is very passionate about the injury situation at Penn State. I've documented, you know, my comments on that are well documented. That the fact of the matter is, several of those injuries in 2021, those guys came back shortly thereafter, and sometimes that happens with football. But there was reason to be suspicious. Nobody was booing people that they legitimately thought were hurt. Nobody was doing that.
Agreed. Although I will say I appreciate Erica because, you know, Corey has to say somewhat politically correct here and somewhat kind of mellow, but we can get our information from you and our passion from other viewers like Erica. I think that's a helpful balance that we can find here.
And as long as it's clean and it
exactly family friendly.
Yep, I'll be happy to read any super chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one joke question before we get to the substance of the game.
Okay.
I saw the game time announcement post from Hawkeye football, and it had the CBS introduction music that used to be used for the SEC for 15 years. How weird did it feel to you to hear that music and think that's going to play on Saturday over an Iowa game?
Yeah, it's going to be weird. That still hasn't. I mean, I know that maybe some people think this is a ridiculous conversation to have, but I still think it's just going to be weird. I don't know.
It's so weird.
It won't be until Saturday night that'll actually sink in.
Yeah.
I just hope that I really do. I hope that Iowa performs well. That's the thing. Like, again, I come on this show, give my criticism, give my takes, but ultimately, man, I just want Iowa to win. I just want them to play well and to perform on CBS in the national spotlight. I'd love to see Cooper DeJean, not just for the sponsor, for RTI Threads, one of the sponsors here, but just in general. He's a small town Iowa kid, and you know, he's obviously going to have a really good future in the NFL. I'd like to see, he's not really broken through yet this year, at potentially a pick six in game one that he dropped. I would like to see him have a big game. Would like to see a receiver like Seth Anderson. I'd love to see Davion Nixon. I want to see him block a punt and scoop it like Adrian Claiborne did in 2009. Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be fantastic. They even seeing the block punt this weekend was so fun because of your, you know, obviously you having him on the show and getting to see a little bit of his personality, and then seeing that play was fun.
He's just a good kid. You saw how bonkers he went after he blocked that thing in the end zone.
Oh yeah.
He's got another level. I love it.
Oh yeah. So I'm curious to hear what you think about a couple of things. So obviously I mentioned the speed of the Penn State defense. We don't have Luke Lachey, who's the safety blanket. I haven't seen a whole lot from Eric All, and maybe that's not Eric All's fault. I would love to see him get more involved and make a big play. What if you're calling plays this weekend, what type of stuff are you dialing up to take advantage of a potentially overexcited defense or over anxious defense that is very athletic and very fast, but can get a little bit, I mean, because that's the one thing that I saw in the film with Illinois was they're a little bit overeager at times to make athletic plays.
Well, I'll tell you the first thing that comes to mind, and this isn't going to surprise you. What am I going to fall back on, Kyle?
Enlighten me.
Waist down. If we're talking about a defense getting a little overeager, you better be disciplined on 2nd and 1. And if a team goes play action on 2nd and 1, and they've built up this tendency where they always run on 2nd and 1. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with those DBs when
They're going to start cheating?
Shows run? They're going to start cheating. And I remember, I go back to 2018. You may not remember this, Kyle, but 2018, Iowa pulled off one of the most gorgeous fakes. And here's one thing. Can I just share this? This is something I don't think Don Patterson would have any problem with me repeating. It's something that he said to me that he's been a little bit disappointed with Cade. And some people would think no big deal, but this is something that he's commented. He's a little bit disappointed in Cade's play action so far this year. When they've went play action, it doesn't appear to Don that Cade does a great job of the actual fake. And
selling it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Don just talked about, back in the day, that was, guys really made a concerted effort to sell that. Well, go back to 2018 when Iowa played at Penn State. You may not remember this, Kyle, but Nate Stanley pulled off a gorgeous play action fake.
Yeah.
And I'll have to find it. And if I find it, I'll send it to you. But when he faked, he kind of hid the ball behind. I thought he kind of hid the ball behind his back, and maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
And then he pulls the ball out, and everybody, cheated down and loaded the box on it. He tosses the ball down the field, and TJ Hawkinson just wide open. And what does Nate Stanley do? He airmails it by 10 yards. I mean, there was nobody around. It was a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah.
And I just remember
it's kind of like the same action that Peyton Manning used to use. I don't know if you remember that. Whenever he used to fake the handoff with his left hand and then keep the ball in his left hand, and he would kind of tuck it, and his body would be between the defense and the defense and the ball. Right. And I mean, he used to have the Colts and the Broncos ran that on the goal line. He had the one famous one against the Cowboys where he just walked in and the camera wasn't even on him because it was such a good fake.
And I just remember the camera after he missed TJ. I just remember the camera going back to Nate, and he just had his eyes were like marbles. Like he was like a deer in the headlights. You could just tell he was just in shock that he missed a wide open TJ Hawkinson. I just remember for some reason that stands out. So I'll go with Iowa's ability to create play action. And, I know some people are going to say I sound like a broken record as it relates to waste downs. That's the ideal scenario where you can take advantage of some of those tendencies that Iowa has built up. I saw somebody in the chat earlier that brought up Iowa's tendencies in kind of a joking manner. It is fair to say that regardless of how pathetic, if you want to say that Iowa's predictability has been under Brian and under Kirk, they have built up tendencies. Now you break tendencies.
Exactly.
Maybe you can start hitting some big plays down the field. So that'd be what I'd say. How does Iowa utilize play action and waste downs on Saturday?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I can't agree more with the tendency comment. I mean, that's you save up tendencies for these games. That's supposedly why they don't light up, or why Iowa hasn't lit up smaller teams in the past that are, have no chance to beat us. Is, they've always said we don't want to show too much. I think Iowa has gotten to the point where it's almost the other way. I would have liked to have seen them show more in the early season, because I think it gets to a point where you actually have to prove to your opponents that you're actually capable of throwing down the field. But like this is what you save it all up for, man. Like you've got hundreds of opportunities over the course of years to take shots down the field, and people know that you're not going to do it. And then, you have these games, and these are the moments. If you're going to break it, this is when you break it.
Absolutely. If they go out there and get if they have 3 waste down, even 3 waste downs, 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, and they don't take one shot down the field on Saturday, Kyle, then I'm just going to say this very plainly. Shame on everyone.
Yeah.
Shame on Brian, shame on Kirk, shame on Budmeyer, shame on everyone if that happens. I hope that doesn't happen, but that would be a travesty.
At that point, it's either a lack of trust somewhere, or it's, I don't know. I don't know what would go through them to make a call like that. And this is unfortunately what they've done in the past, but it would be mind-boggling to me if they don't go to Penn State and try and take it to them and play to win.
Boy, that would be nice to see.
I think the other interesting part in the game that I'd like to get your thoughts on. We've talked about you've talked about the D line a little bit. I think the D line is deep. I like the depth. I don't see, like you kind of mentioned, I don't see that top tier player on the D line. I don't see that top tier pass rusher that's going to make or that you're confident is going to make a play in a game like this. I'm curious. I know it's not Phil Parker's tendency. I would love to see him send a slot corner or an outside linebacker a couple times early in this game after Drew Aller, because I don't see them getting a ton of pressure with just the front four. I'd be interested to see if that's something that he will pull out of his hat, because I think, he's got to be a deer in headlights towards the end of this game if Iowa was going to win. If Drew Aller has a good game, even a pretty good game, not a great game, I don't think Iowa wins. I think the only way Iowa wins is if he has a below average game. And I think you've got to get in his head early that pressure could be coming from places that it's not necessarily coming from. I would love to see them send some extra guys, even though that's not their MO.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Nick Jackson got in the backfield a couple of times last week on some pressure. So, maybe they'll do that. Obviously, like you said, I was not one to send a lot of pressure, but Phil is deliberate and exact when he decides to send extra pressure. And without I'm not saying that Aller can't run, but he's not the most mobile in the world.
Exactly.
So that's fair. And you also have an opportunity at creating potentially more big plays on defense. You have a potential of giving up big plays too, but you have the potential of giving up or of creating, whether it be a strip sack or a rush throw and a pick, an intentional grounding penalty that sets you back behind the chains and kind of is a equivalent of a sack and a drive stopper. That's a fair point. I had heard some people in the chat speculate about Iowa offensively. That we shouldn't be rooting for Rain because you got a couple of young backs carrying the football. I don't know. Guys are, listen, if Liddell Betts isn't preaching ball security this week with these backs, regardless of the weather, then shame on him. He is, believe me, especially after that fumble on the goal line. And it seems to me, and I could be totally off on this, there probably is some correlation between youth and ball security or lack thereof. But we've also seen guys, Kyle, you know this, we've seen guys over the years that struggle with ball security for their entire careers. And some guys like Tyler Goodson, who pretty much was solid his entire career with ball security.
Guys, I remember Ivory Kelly Martin later in his career. He had an issue with fumbles. He had 3 or 4 fumbles his last year of eligibility.
Exactly. I don't know that youth is always there's a direct correlation, cause and effect relationship there, but I'm going to keep refreshing the weather page throughout the week and hoping that number goes up.
Yeah. I also, just to put a button on the pressure discussion, I wouldn't mind seeing Xavier Wampa in the backfield again. I know that's so off tendency, but I feel like his athleticism, he's the kind of guy that if they sent him once or twice, I think he could make a play in that respect as well. One game that I found
before you go on, I was just going to comment. You made a comment about the defensive line.
Yeah,
they have an opportunity in a year to have several game breakers on the defensive line.
Absolutely,
across the board. Like Brian Allen's close. Ontario Thompson is a guy who can be that.
Aaron Graves will be that guy.
Aaron Graves is absolutely got a chance. I think some people kind of thought maybe Deontay Craig would take that step this year, and he's been a little quiet. I'm almost hesitant to say this because I don't know this, but he almost seems a little, maybe he's gained a little bit too much weight. I don't know if anybody else noticed that with Deontay, but that's been one observation.
Certainly, he certainly hasn't been he certainly hasn't made a lot of plays, and you're right, he's somebody that definitely was primed to take a Joe Evans-esque leap in the last year or two here.
Yeah, and Joe Evans doesn't have maybe some of the physical tools that Deontay does.
I like Joe Evans' intangibles more than anything else.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, I do too. He's kind of like Nate Meyer back in 2015. Just a really solid guy, but he can make big plays even though he's undersized. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's one game in particular so in 2021, and I don't know if anybody else listened to this, but Joel Klatt, whenever Iowa was way up at the top of the rankings, I think it was either right before the Penn State game or right after, he did a piece on his show about the Iowa defense and basically talked about the structure of the defense and what they're designed to do, which is basically the way that he described it was they're designed to be okay with giving up 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, and then wait for the opposing team to kind of get impatient. Right. And when they get impatient is when they make plays, right? Iowa played Michigan at home last year. And I thought that game was so interesting because it was almost like they had taken that so to heart because J.J. McCarthy, I can't remember how many passes he threw, but there was some stat after the game that 60% of his passes were caught within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Like the number of times that he got the ball off the snap and then just immediately threw it to the sidelines. And then the same thing with the run game. They were so patient that day. I remember being really, really impressed with them because they took the 4 yard and the 5 yard and the 4 yard and the 5 yard gains over and over and over again to the point where they looked up and they were up 20-0. And I honestly, I think if Penn State is patient like that and they watch that film and they've seen other times where teams have done that to Iowa, if they play that way, I think they have a 90% chance to win. I'm interested to see if they get impatient and they take shots down the field because I think that's going to be so important to Iowa having a chance.
I know Tom Kakert's made the statement in the past that he doesn't really believe in James Franklin as an in-game coach.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's fair. What does he see on tape heading into this game? Does he recognize that? I remember thinking back to that Michigan game last year and thinking the same thing, how patient and deliberate, and they just didn't take shots. I mean, you would think with the skill position talent that Michigan has, especially out wide that they would, but they didn't. They didn't need to.
No, they did not need to.
And, Iowa had a chance sort of late in that game, but for the most part, Michigan thoroughly beat Iowa.
Yeah. That was not a one score game. That was a better team.
I think Michigan learned some things by playing Iowa in the championship game prior, and maybe Iowa didn't learn as much. They played really well in that championship game defensively. If you go back, I know they gave up 42 points, but man, they just
I am so sick of people. I'm so sick of people referencing that game and saying Iowa just got destroyed because at the very end of the third quarter, that was like what, a 14-3 game. Like
you can't do it when your offense gives you absolutely nothing.
Yeah, they busted that game wide open in the fourth quarter, but that was not a like kickoff and then a blowout. That was not a straight blowout.
Same with Iowa, Ohio State last year.
I was absolutely astounded watching that game because they gave up 54 points, and I looked at the person I was watching the game with, and I went, I think the defense played great. I think they played fantastic. Ohio State's average starting field position in that game in the first half was in Iowa territory.
Yeah. I just remember the first play of that game against Ohio State. Very first play from scrimmage. What happens? Spencer Petras rolls out left, throws it right to an Ohio State defender.
They chose to, on the first play of the game, roll their 2x4 wooden quarterback
left
towards his offhand and throw across his body.
Straight to an Ohio State defender.
Straight to an Ohio State defender. That was play calling. That was execution. There's everything about that play. And then the pick at the end of the first quarter that was either returned to like the 1 yard line or was a pick six. I think it was a pick six.
Pick six.
And it was like, what did you see there, dude? Like There was no receiver within 5 yards of that linebacker, and it hit him right in the numbers.
Yeah, no, I know. Let's hope we don't have let's hope the offense looks better in this game than it did at Ohio State last year, and against Michigan the year before that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a chance if they take the shots. I mean, it's really going to be a game that comes down to, hopefully for Iowa, it's 5 or 6 chances for a DB or a linebacker or somebody to make a big play on special teams. The way Michigan played that game at Kinnick, there was virtually no chances. There was maybe 1 or 2 plays that were like that. But hopefully they put the ball in jeopardy 5 or 6 times. We make 2 or 3 plays, and that's the difference in the ball game. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting.
Absolutely, sir.
Well, I will see you late on Saturday night or early on Sunday morning. How about that?
Sounds good. Well, I'll be here, as you know.
You'll be here into the wee hours of the morning.
Yep. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it as always, sir.
All right. Good to talk to you, Corey.
All right. Appreciate Kyle calling in. And, man, we're pushing 3 hours here. A couple comments here in the chat. Esther, this was a while back. How are you doing tonight? Well, I was doing pretty good 2.5 hours ago. Now I'm a little tired. We've got Tony here still waiting on hold. He's probably tired too. River, I did not mean to miss your comment, River. He says, what are your thoughts on Iowa's black pant alternate uniforms for this weekend? I like them. I don't know that it's going to make any difference in the ball game, but I do like it. I always like the alternate uniform stuff. And I think that's a unique, simple idea of changing things up. The white pants would have been interesting too, but I like the black. Let's see. Mo Parley. Dream scenario is Kirk Ferentz retires and Brian is fired and Paul Chryst is tired. Sam, does Brian keep his job if we win at Penn State but go 5-3 to finish the year? 9-3, 23 points per game keeps him around, in my opinion. Man, I don't know. 5-3, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with any of that. Me trying to predict, like, if Brian leaves, does Kirk leave? I think so, probably. I've said that for a while. I just probably. Yeah, I don't know. Justin says, was it 2015 when they got smoked by Tennessee in the Outback Bowl? Yes. 2014 season, 2015 bowl game? No, that was in December of 2014. That would have been 2014, Justin. And Brandon, question, what would everyone do if Iowa busts out the offense like they did against Ohio State? Well, we'd be going pretty late in this postgame show. I can assure you of that. All right, final caller of the night. Mr. Tony. Tony. Look at that. From the Hawkeye of the Storm gear on. Let's get rid of Brandon's comment. From the Hawkeye of the Storm gear on, you've got the Exile Brewing sign in the background. You got the Tiger Hawk. You got everything going on.
I don't know. I can't. You know, when you're on camera, you're backwards, so I can't.
How long have you been on hold?
I don't know. It doesn't. It's all right, Corey. I don't mind. It's all good.
That's good. I'm glad you had that.
You don't have to point out how much of not a life I have. So it's no big deal.
I'm just assuming the family's all tucked away. And you're living the bachelor life for a couple hours. So
yes. I even changed up my signage because you gave me such a hard time last time with my weather meter getting in the way of the green little guy.
It was in the way of the
green guy. Yeah.
Game tracker. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I even changed that up for you, and then you don't even put the green little guy up.
This is a good opportunity to put a plug in for the merch. Merchandise available. Description below. You can look like Tony, and Tony. You're a proud supporter of this show, and I'm a proud advocate for your support. So thank you.
I was going to ask you. So, by the way, hold on. Is my mic coming in fine?
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
You have more mic. Can I just say you have more mic?
You know, I played that out, and I probably do. And I played that out the last 10 days or so, and I think I finally found the right combination that works. And I think it should come in clear.
So you've gone back and heard some of these issues that we.
Oh yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Like
100%.
the loud.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You also have this thing with your camera, and it's doing it right now.
Where it's fuzzy, I know.
Blurry, and then it focuses.
Yeah,
It goes
I
black.
know. I know. I understand. It's all right. Hey, I get it.
I'm
I'm
hard
not,
time.
no, you're fine. You're fine. I get it. I do have to ask you though, how were the victory wings at Jethro's?
Can I tell you, I went several times last week.
Good. I'm glad you could enjoy it.
But let me tell you something, and I'm not going to rip anybody. I did not have the best experience the last day I went.
Okay.
And not
They probably saw you coming on the security cams in the parking lot. That's
probably
probably
true. And I'll just.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Jethro's is not sponsoring my show, and if they ever do, I'll just go back and I'll cut this whole thing out. But just so you know, I walk into the Jethro's in Ames on Saturday. All right, and I never go to Jethro's to watch a ball game. Probably never will again. All right, but I go to Jethro's to watch a ball game, meet a couple of buddies there, and I had called in advance and said, "Hey, can you put the audio for the game on?" And they said, "Well, normally we only do it for the Iowa State game." I said, "Okay," and he's like, "Well, I'll check with my manager." Checks with the manager. Yeah, we can probably do that if we get enough requests. So I run in and sit down, and I say, "Hey, could we get the audio on the Iowa game?" We only do that for the Iowa State game. And I'm like, okay, the Iowa State game is over.
Yeah.
The Iowa State game is over. All right. So he goes, "Oh, let me talk to my manager." So he goes back and talks to the manager. All right, the manager said we can do it this time. Do you realize that I don't listen to Gary and Ed, but do you realize they sponsor the Iowa show? Like, how stupid. Like, I guarantee you if I contacted the owner of Jethro's, I can't remember the guy's name, he would put a kibosh on that.
Yeah.
Because that is bad. I don't care if your names or not. That's just bad.
They have locations all over the state and even the Des Moines metro. It's not like it's what's the name of that?
It's not Hickory Park.
Yes, yep.
But here's the deal. We had some weird experience with a couple of the other people that worked there that day. And then midway through the third quarter, all of a sudden they started playing hip hop music. So at that point I was done. I'm like, done. This is ridiculous. Now, they lost some money on me last week. Oh. They lost some money on me last week, Tony. I'll say that.
Well, I'm glad you could enjoy it. And I'm glad I could make it. I hope there was other. Gosh, and I can still see that. I need to get a new camera. I can still see that dumb thing with my camera. Well, anyways, I hope there's a lot of Hawkeye fans' names, or even the Des Moines Metro that drove up and put a dent in their pocket. I don't want to see Jethro's lose money because they seem like a good local company, but to show Hawkeye fans were enjoying both sides of it. Hey, the Ames location gets this special, but we still won the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was good. Let's be honest, it was the perfect scenario for me.
Oh, 100. Yeah. It worked out perfectly for you.
Brian helps me by not scoring more than 25, and Iowa still wins. Phil Parker holds up his end of the bargain.
We've had a few games here now. Has your season outlook changed?
No, it hasn't. I still think this team will win 10 games. Yeah. Okay. I'm nervous with Cade's health. That's what I'm nervous about. Honestly, the Luke Lachey situation, the Caleb Johnson situation, the Jazz Patterson injury, those things don't really make me that nervous. Luke Lachey's injury is devastating, and I feel bad for him and his family. And I really like Luke. Good kid. Going to have a great future. Hope he comes back next year, but if he goes to the league, wish him all the best. I wish he was playing. They'd be better with him, but they are really deep at tight end. Yeah. And I think they're going to be okay there because traditionally they're okay there. And they've got more depth than they usually do at that position. But my biggest question is Cade's health. And they're not as deep on defense. And that's weird for me to say because defense is the stronger of the two units. But in those specific spots, running back, tight end, they're deep. Mm-hmm. All right. They're not deep at quarterback. They're not deep at receiver. I don't know how deep they are at offensive line. They've had a lot of guys who have played, but not a lot of guys who have played well. But then you look at in the defense, they're not real deep at linebacker. I don't know how deep they are at corner, although they've helped the depth with Deshaun Lee getting some extra time. They're deep at defensive line. So it just depends. If you can avoid injuries at certain key positions, then this team can win a lot of games. And they can win Saturday. They can win Saturday in a low-scoring game. And if they do that, they're 4-0. Boy, the hype train will get revved up.
I've got a lighthearted question. I don't know if you mind me asking. Okay. It's about your first podcast that was put on YouTube. Do you remember what the topic was that you covered?
The first podcast on YouTube?
For this channel. I actually went back and searched it, and it says episode 1. And I listened to it.
Well, hold on a second. Couple things. So that if you listen to episode 1.
Yes.
If you listen to episode 1, keep in mind that was reposted. So let me explain something to you. I didn't start posting on YouTube until episode 130.
Yes, correct. But there is an episode 1 out there.
And the reason that's there is because I did not upload that, but somebody that helps me with some of the production side of things thought it would be a good idea to go grab the old podcasts that were posted on SoundCloud and these different from years and years ago.
Oh yeah.
And repost the audio only, because I didn't have video at the time. Repost the audio.
Correct.
Only.
Yep, it is audio only.
That is what you're talking about. Do I remember what that first episode was about?
What the main topic was.
The main topic. I know we talked fantasy football.
Correct. That was it. It was the fantasy football league.
Was that what it was? That was the whole.
Yep. It was the whole top, but it was the main topic.
We talked Iowa.
Yeah, you did.
I'm trying to think what year that would have been. That would have been like
20, I think it was like 13.
2013, so it would have been 10 years.
Yeah.
That's funny that you went back and listened to that. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, I was just like, I want to see what episode 1 is this, because I joined kind of midstream or however you want to say it. And I was like, let's see the I was hoping honestly that I'd go back and it'd be like, okay, I'm Corey Brada. This is my history, yada yada. Like when you usually have episode 1 of something of
no,
and that's not no, it wasn't that. It wasn't
that.
Which is fine. I mean,
you got to keep in mind, I was a teenager at the time. I was like a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
So and I remember doing it. I remember doing it with my brother, and we always joke around that that's the best episode of all time. So
it was you could tell you guys were having fun. It did come across, so I will tell you that.
People go back. I don't know.
I want to say you need to pump up the views. I think I was viewer number 12 on that or something.
So can I explain something to you?
Oh no, yeah.
For anybody that's curious, we got 140 people still watching, surprisingly enough, at 11:08 p.m., 3 hours into the show. But anyways, anybody who's curious, those old shows that were audio only, those early shows that were reposted to YouTube. One of the reasons why I don't care to continue to posting those shows is if you understand how the algorithm works with YouTube. Those shows are not going to create degenerate views, nor should they. Yeah. So I don't know how advantageous it is to continue to upload those old episodes, even though I'd like to from
just a nostalgic,
nostalgia standpoint, have them there, have them cataloged there, and I have all the shows, stored. I just don't know that it does anything good for my channel. Because you're right, listen to them, and I wouldn't listen to them. I was raising my hand and waving my hands when you said who listened to the halftime show after it happened. I was one of those viewers who post halftime show. Hey, if people listen, I'll keep. Maybe I should do halftime shows more often. If it's gonna. I don't think a normal halftime show would generate that, but people were frustrated by the 14.
Oh yeah. Oh, I could get it. It was a situational thing, and 100% I understand. 100%.
And you had the rainbow day or the lightning.
Oh yeah. I've just got 2 things to close out. It's actually one basketball, one football.
Okay.
And the one football is who's your breakout player for the conference season on both offense and defense?
Say that again.
who is your breakout player on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, for the conference slate? Because we're in the conference slate now. Like, who do you think is going to break out, one on offense, one on defense, now that we're in that slate?
One on offense, one on defense. I would say on offense, I'll go Addison Astringa.
Okay.
I think he starts making a difference in the passing game. And with Luke Lachey out. And then for defense, I'll say it's a good question for defense. Probably be somebody up front. I'll say Deontay Craig. I'll say
I didn't mean to put you on the spot that much. I should have given you a little warning.
No, I just want to be thoughtful. Be thoughtful with my answer. I just think somebody's going to break through up front and start getting home. I know that's not necessarily how this defense is built, but I think somebody will.
Gotcha. Understand.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jazz Patterson comes back and continues to play well, but until I know that those are both lower leg injuries for Jazz and for Caleb, so that makes you nervous as well. And Xavier Wampa could be a breakout candidate.
Mm-hmm. So, well, the basketball question I have, it's not really basketball related, but it's more related to your show. Number one, has Coach Close signed a contract for the upcoming season?
Has Coach Close signed
a contract with you? Like, I mean contract. Like, is he going to be on the shows, or have you even got that far ahead of the basketball season?
That's a good question. I can't give you a yes or a no on that yet.
Okay. Now, also
no here pretty soon.
Okay. Now, also, I've followed the football shows. I haven't been able to join in live, but Tom has been doing the presser update for Kirk. Is that possible for Fran as well during the basketball season?
That's a good question. I don't know that we had that conversation or not. By the way, real quick, not to deviate from what you just asked.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
There was a political comment made in the chat. Apparently, I went away from the chat for a few seconds.
You can't stop watching that, Corey. Come on, you've got to do everything.
We had to ban somebody because I'm not going to deal with politics in the chat or whatever else was going on there. So I apologize to anybody who was a victim of that. Again, I don't know why you got to babysit people in the chat, but anyways, I think it's the mix of fan bases we have here this evening. So I apologize for that taking so long. I was not looking at that.
Oh, yeah.
Our good friend Kyle, who's a mod, is not with us. So apparently he was with us a few minutes ago, but he must have went to bed like a wise person.
Well, he's probably got to get up for his 5 a.m. tea time or something.
He's got his 5 a.m. tea, still in the dark. But anyway,
hey, are you a golfer?
I try to be. I'm not like Kyle's
yeah.
He's a good golfer.
I just a side story. I'm not a golfer, but this fling golf. It's like something where you get like a stick that has like almost a lacrosse thing, and you just fling the ball, and you use it on like a normal golf course. And I just found out about this it's called fling golf. It's almost like if you have a puppy or a dog, like a chuck it, where you like chuck the tennis ball. It's like a scooper, and you chuck the tennis ball. It's the same thing, but with like a golf ball. You just have this stick, and you go out to the normal courses, and you just chuck it. And I can't. I've only played golf twice in my life, and I can't shoot the ball straight or anything in my life. But it was just a side topic with Kyle being a golfer and waking up early. That's all.
What was your question before I did?
Oh, Tom Caker, doing the basketball and stuff. Yeah,
I'll definitely keep you posted. I know Tom and I have talked about integrating more with basketball and even women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that will be directly linked to the post-game show, I don't know. But I know for recruiting and some, we had Tom on for a segment with Nick Brooks committing and posted that, and so we're going to try to mix that in. It's not a real busy time with I mean, it's always busy. Recruiting's always we're always going, and Iowa had a big miss for men's basketball again this past week.
There's some backup options. I know you're probably not watching the basketball recruiting, obviously, as much, but it seems like
it just seems like
I understand. But basketball is so dirty compared to football.
But at some point,
I get it.
It wasn't. They weren't. Fran was struggling to land them before NIL became a priority. Now NIL is a priority. He still's not landing them.
He has one thing I'll say just on that is he has adapted his approach where he went after is Cricky the Canadian-born one, and now the kid he's going after in the NBA Latin America League is also Canadian-born. So he's also understanding that is a weakness that he can't play that NIL McDonald's bag game money. However, I have a whole rant on that, but it's just college basketball is so dirty, and we all know it's happening.
Just keep in mind that Kirk has benefited from NIL.
Oh, 100%. Yes. And I get it. It's just there's not that much support in the basketball NIL.
And why is that?
People don't like Fran. I'll be honest. I mean, I won't hold punches back about that. I love him, you know that. I mean, I love the guy, but I understand how he's.
I'm not saying you're right. That's the problem.
It is. He needs to be more. He needs to endear himself more to the public.
I think that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed.
It unfortunately has.
He's not turning over a new leaf.
No, he's not. He's not. He's not.
This is what it is.
This is who he is.
Yep.
But I will say I think he's more likable than Alford.
Oh, absolutely. And I like Fran. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like Fran. I think he's a good person. He's a good human being. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, I understand. And I didn't want to derail the show off that.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, so thanks for your time. I appreciate it, Corey. You probably want to get to bed, and we probably all do. So
probably.
I'll hopefully catch you on a few more post-game shows. But is this a normal thing throughout the football season, the Hawkeye Hangout on Wednesdays? Or
I don't know about
semi-normal.
Semi-normal. We'll call it that.
Okay.
3 hour, 10-minute Hawkeye Hangout on Wednesday. I can't guarantee each week, but we'll try to mix in regular call-in shows during conference play throughout the season. It may not be every week. Last week kind of kept it to an every Wednesday type of thing. And try to be a little bit more flexible because this is not a TV network where we're trying to schedule. We can kind of be flexible based on things that are happening. So we'll see what happens. But this is going to be expect more of these call-in shows.
I look forward to hopefully a successful rest of the football season and your news with we'll see what the basketball season brings. Hopefully Coach Close and Tom could come back or something like that. So
I'll send those messages along.
Do you know, have you heard from Coach Close if his son is still back as a manager? I was trying to look that
up. I did talk to Coach the other day, and from what he told me, Sam is not back as a manager.
Okay.
So
understand. So.
Yep.
Well, sorry to end on a somber note like that, but appreciate your time. So.
All right, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
All right, folks. It's been a good, fun 3 hours. Iowa, Penn State Saturday, under the lights, whiteout, Happy Valley, CBS, all that good stuff. Tune in for Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson after the game right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. A few quick reminders. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button on your way out of the show. Please be sure to follow me at From the Hawkeye on Twitter, at From the Hawkeye on Instagram, and From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. Please share the show out on social media if you're enjoying it. Others enjoy it. If they're Hawkeye fans, they'll enjoy it as well. Shop Amazon with us. You can click on the link in the description below. Sign up for a free trial of Aura. Sign up for a free trial of Aura and protect your information and benefit this show and also our merchandise. Link to our merchandise in our description and all of our wonderful sponsors. You can also donate to our channel by means of a number of different options: Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chat, Super Thanks, Super Sticker, ways to support the show. Appreciate everybody being here, folks. Talk to you Saturday night. I'll be posting my official preview tomorrow, and a special podcast with a women's basketball guest. Stay tuned for that coming up later this week as well. Have a great night.